And that is correct, ladies and gentlemen. We are simulcasting right now on Twitter and also on the good old YouTube. We got a couple gentlemen here in front of us who are the Opnet guys. We're going to be discussing Opnet, Moto swap, everything that these two gentlemen got to offer. And if you guys got any questions, please don't be shy. Let us know in the live chat. It's going to be a hot take. I think this one's going to get spicy. So if you don't mind the Uncensored show, this is not going to be PG-13. We're going to be talking about the real shit. We're going to be tackling every single point here moving forward to how these guys got to Opnet. And just like, the overall markets as well, runes, and even Fractal Bitcoin. We got a really good one for y'all, so stay tuned.
Francis Dune, Uncensored.
That is correct, ladies and gentlemen. We are here with the Opnet fellas. We got Chad Master. We got Danny Plainview up in the house. There's a lot of information out there. I think we're just going to be an open book here. We're going to discuss this like men, and then we're going to get to the constructive side of things, which is what are they actually building? I see a lot of Opcat, Opnet, Op this, Op that, but is this going to be something that's going to be truly innovative and trade and change the way you trade tokens on Bitcoin Layer 1, which I do believe you guys are going to Fractal as well, but please, you guys will be the ones telling us all of these things here. Danny and Chad, thank you so much for making this happen. We are live right now on YouTube and Twitter. You guys can share with your community too, if you please. But yeah, there's a lot of talk happening here, right, with Opnet, and is this actually going to happen, and how is it possible? I'm sure you guys are very smart, by the way. I say this publicly. You guys say the right things, and I have a good human bullshit detector meter, and my bullshit detector did not pop off. But I know there's some noise out there. People are saying X, Y, and Z. I know how the fucking game is. People like to talk a lot of shit for no reason, or maybe there is good reason. I don't know. But before we get to Opnet, which I'm super fascinated by, and lovely interview you guys did with Mark on the Hash Rate show, that's what got my attention. Chad actually reached out to me, Chad, some time ago when I was going to Hong Kong, right? The whole Bitcoin Asia movement. We never met up there for whatever reason. And I think that was before Opnet, right? We were talking about Moto swap, X, Y, and Z. So this was like overdue, and here we are sitting right now. So guys, thank you so much for joining.
Hell yeah, man.
Thanks for having us,
Good to be here.
Good stuff. So
yeah, I reached out to you in Hong Kong because that was like really early stages of Opnet development. And I wanted to key you in like, hey, this is something that's on the horizon. So I'm glad that we got to link up now.
Absolutely. I agree. There's a lot happening right now, man. I'm very excited with the whole Fractal movement, enablement of Opcat as well. And from what I hear, I think Opnet could do a little bit more advanced things. So we're going to dive into all of that. But before we get to the real meat and potatoes, which is that, let's talk a little bit about your history. Now, as viewers start to roll in, we could probably start it off with over here. Okay, I believe you guys were at the beginning for BRC 20s, and you had some involvement with the Oshi project. I know Danny can't wait to talk. Look at him. He has a mouthful already. But I don't know, whoever wants to take it, maybe Danny. What's up with Oshi, and why are people saying all of these different things out there?
Yeah, so hello. Thanks for having us on the show. I'm Danny, and yes, me and Chad I've been in crypto for like 10 years, so long time. And then in late January, early February, I started to see ordinals, pop in my Twitter feed. I think it was Dada's Twitter thread from the Wizards project. Anyways, we started diving into ordinals and looking specifically for DeFi. Like we didn't really have any interest in the JPEGs or NFTs. It didn't really feel like that was going to be a super best thing to invest in. So we started looking for tokens, and there were no tokens yet. So this was like right before BRC 20 happened. And then when BRC 20 did happen, we found this other community called the Ordinal Board. This actually predates Oshi.
Is that the council?
No, this was literally what turned out to be a scam project from a French team of like 4 or 5 different French developers.
Okay.
Pretty much none of them who spoke English. But the project looked really cool, and they were talking about DeFi, and it was very like mystic. And so myself, Chad, and a handful of other just like ordinal early people, we bought a shit ton of these ordinal board plots.
Okay.
I think myself, I put 5 Bitcoin into it, and this was when Bitcoin was pretty low. So, so we bought that, and then that same team, about 2 months later, me and Chad, we just didn't really see any stuff happening with the tokens.
Okay.
I don't think Unisat Indexer was even really live yet, so people were just like doing the ord swap kind of.
Or back in the day when Gamma used to steal everybody's fucking ordies.
Yes. This is exactly that era. And so me and Chad, kind of like fell out of interest, to be honest, of ordinals for like a month-ish, like for pretty much the month of April. We were like moving and doing a bunch of stuff. So, and then in May, we came back and I had checking on all the Discords and everything. And the ordinal board Discord had posted that they launched a BRC20 token called Oshi. And so me and Chad missed the free mint. Just to be like very, very clear here, we had no involvement in the launching of this whatsoever, to the point where we missed the free mint of it. So we bought this asset that this team put out that was an NFT basically, and then they put out a token, free minted it, and we missed the free mint of it. And so we aped the shit out of the listings basically, from the token minted for free, and I think it was $400 by the time that me and Chad started buying. It was a low supply token, kind of like how Wi-Fi was. That was kind of the idea.
Yeah.
So I basically went like all in on Oshi because it said that it was going to be like a Uniswap on Bitcoin, right? So we were looking for how to invest in something like that for a couple months before. And then when we saw it happen, not knowing the tech stack of BRC20 and how everything works, we just kind of took it to face value and it aped in really hard. And like I said, the team that was doing this, Oshi and Ordinal Board and Yari, they launched like 4 tokens. It was crazy. But they were a French team and they had no English communication whatsoever. All their documents were in French. All their tweets were in French. It was kind of a nightmare. And so I started doing just like community work for them basically. So I would hang out in the Discord all day. I bought a bunch of the tokens, so I'm trying to keep the vibes good. Everybody's kind of not used to DeFi stuff in the Bitcoin world, so I have to like explain things to people. I just like took over the role of community manager, and Chad was helping out as well. And then basically after 2 months, from May to July of doing that, and there's still no product. They keep saying things are going to come, things are coming. I was invited to go to France to meet this team and help them out in real life. And so I flew to France.
So you started on as a community member, pretty much. Yeah. Okay, gotcha. Yeah. So you're an investor.
Yeah.
Just like everybody else. Everybody was looking for, like, dude, I was fucking killing it back then, dude. Like, dude, in real time, I was like minting memes on Bitcoin. I shit did over 300x. And on Pepe, I don't know. I never gone to like the other ones like Oshi and such, but back then I was rock and rolling. Sorry, go ahead, Chad.
Yeah, that was just that was our vibe. Like we would buy stuff and then work for our bags. Like that's always been our philosophy. We are narrative traders purely, especially at this point. We weren't super familiar with the tech stack or anything, so we were just bought it and just were you got to get involved. Like we're not the type to just wait around for someone to pump our bags. Like if we see a cool idea, we're just going to get involved. Danny, way more than myself too. Like he just got super involved because again, the idea of Uniswap on Bitcoin was awesome, right? Yeah. So that still hasn't been achieved, So sorry, Dan, keep going.
Yeah. So this was basically like the first DeFi BRC20 meta token, right? Like again, just to be very clear, this team didn't make or release any product ever. That's why we ended up taking it over. But they kind of had the narrative play of like, this is going to be DeFi and Bitcoin. So it was like a really, really tight community of people who were very early to BRCs, very early to ordinals, but they saw what, could happen on Bitcoin before it did. Yeah. And so I just like really fucked with the community, like very, very heavily. There's like some people in there who I talk to every day to this day. So it was a very, cool group of people, but the team was just French and they were a little lazy and they were not really focused on communicating anything because it was just kind of a grift. So anyways, before the veil was kind of revealed on it, I flew to France for I literally I went there for 2 weeks, and then I came back, and I intended to move there for 6 months to live with this Oshi team. They called themselves the Ord. That was the name of it before. And again, none of them spoke English, and I don't speak any French. So it was like I go there, and there's ChatGPT, and that's how we're talking to each other. It was insane. It was nuts.
I feel your pain there. With the Chinese, I use Google Translator though, but
yeah,
all good.
So it was nuts. And pretty much the first time I went out there, I was just kind of, starry-eyed and like, holy shit, they're making stuff. It's going to be cool. I was helping them like write docs for just basically them giving me work to do for, here's what we're making. Here it is in French. Make this into English and make it readable. And so that's what I did until I went back out there the second time to, actually live there for 6 months with these guys.
Yeah.
And pretty much the main guy who was running the Oshi project before, his username was Merlin. And he said that he was going to, come live with us, and it was going to be this whole thing. And then it ended up just being myself and Grug. If you know Grug, he was really early to ordinals. He's the only one of that group that kind of speaks a little bit of English, OX Grug. And then another French guy whose name was Junk Food Punk Brute.
Interesting.
He was kind of a crazy guy. And so I lived out there with the two of them, and this Merlin guy was supposed to live with us, but he didn't, and never met up with us, was leaving us to do all of this work, was being like a control freak from the distance. And so long story short is like the community was very fed up with it. Like there was a general community of people who had minted this token, and they didn't really care because they minted it for free. It spent like $2, But then there was like a pretty dedicated community of people who bought the token and didn't mint it.
Okay.
Who were like not on board with this. We just trust the process. We trust the team. Like we need updates. We need things like this. And I basically became like the point of contact for anyone who was interested in this project. I became like the communicator of it, right? Doing all these spaces. And so essentially, I committed a hostile takeover or a community takeover, if you want to say, of the project, where I said like, this Merlin guy, we found out that he minted like 30% of the tokens. We found out that his friends minted a bunch of the tokens. They were just dumping nonstop. And so when that was all kind of revealed, it basically said, hey, you either send us all of your Oshi to the old team guy Merlin. You either send it to us, and we're going to put it in a multi-sig, and you can keep 100 Oshi, which would be worth 100,000 Moto right now, which is like $500,000. Or you don't give us anything and you refuse to cooperate because you're a scammer, and we're going to take this over and we're going to make our own token standard. We're going to airdrop it to everyone who holds Oshi, and you're going to get none of it.
So is this where the confusion lays with certain people who are claiming that how you guys are the Oshi team? I think that's what the perception is.
This is the fourth piece of content we've done that explains that we're not the Oshi team. At this point, it's literally just like people who don't like me. Like it's
at the end of the day, anyone who's been involved, who actually is in the community, who holds Moto, who is involved with us, who's been there, not a single person has anything bad to say about us. We've proven our character time after time. And again, there's just a small group of people who basically just harass us and harass our community and reply guy to every single post. These are guys who, are just posting insanely psychotic, racist content constantly. If you dig through their Twitters, it's just like their entire life is dedicated to trying to like call us scammers or whatever. But at the end of the day, like look at the scoreboard here. The actual team, the guy who launched Oshi, Merlin, has gotten away with multiple other exactly the same playbook scams where he
did FCDP, CLTV, which is like a fake staking protocol for your fund. That's also him. Like he's just a serial.
Yeah, the Oshi Finance Twitter is still active. It's still this same guy. So you can't, in good faith, ever confuse us for this team. So again, like it's just a few select people who are like decided to dedicate their entire lives, whether they're just pathetic individuals or whether they just.
Well, because I talked a lot of shit about Track on the early days. Is like I don't think that Track a
Give me
legitimate solution.
give me the full blown screen for this one, dog. I think I spoke the most shit about track, okay, at the beginning, and that's still like people still remember that, and I'm still getting flack for it. But look, that's one of our topics actually later down the line. But let's save that for then. So I get this is what I mean. I see a lot of me and experiences I went through in you guys, and I thought it would have made a cool show. But I've also, and I didn't even think it was talking shit. It was talking the truth about track. And we're going to definitely get into that track and tap later down the line. Okay, so I think the misconception here is you guys you try to take it over in terms of the community and do it the right way. You airdrop your Moto swap tokens, right? 1 for 1. Is that the case? And that's
it was
kind of
1,000 Moto to 1 Oshi, basically.
right, 1,000 to 1. Gotcha.
Supply, yeah.
Yeah. So that's where people probably have this thing in their head, and even if you try to tell them, they're just stuck in. It's embedded. They're thinking, their minds are already made up. Okay, cool. Let's move on to one of my favorite topics, to be honest. It's the cerebral fucking palsy. Dog, my chat used to go crazy for this shit when it came out. Like, people actually made some good money with CBRCs, and I just never minted any. I was just doing my own thing. I was building this inscription tool using Shint BRC20 as a form of payment instead of your Bitcoin. So I was preoccupied with my own thing. And then my chat will only talk about CBRC. So I made up that name, cerebral palsy, because guys will get giddy and shaky and oh my god, dude, the fucking mempool will go crazy. I remember those days. So, I think you guys, is Tekashin here from the chat, guys? Let me know. He's like your ultimate fanboy for CBRCs, honestly. Honestly, my community member. I always make fun of him, but not because nothing's wrong or with it, just how he acts to it. So yeah, CBRCs. What's up with that? Is there some sort of FUD around that too? Or?
So CBRC was literally, we wanted to airdrop this Moto token to everybody, right? But BRC20 Moto had already been deployed as a ticker, and so we couldn't do anything about it. What are we going to do? Call the token M0T0? Like that looks dumb as hell. So we literally made our own token standard, which was basically like a fork of the logic of BRC20. It was just implemented in like a different, basically BRC20 tokens are JSON files, right? And so you can compress JSON data.
Time out. I'm so annoying sometimes, sorry. But Danny, you know that how with Fractal they're doing this like inscription based, there's transfer inscriptions. So Shizzy was like, oh, I hate fucking transfer inscriptions. And I'm like, yes, it's the return of Jason, but like the Halloween guy with the mask on, but Jason. But anyway, sorry. Didn't mean to interrupt you for that, but yeah, go on.
It was funny, man. Yeah. So yeah, they're JSON files, right? And you can compress JSON data as what's called a CBOR file, CBOR, and it basically is like 60% more compressed than JSON data is, but it's the same data. And so Casey or Raf, one of the two of them, added like a meta protocol field into the ordinal envelope, and they pushed it very silently. So they did it in September. And they didn't document any of it until like almost mid-December. And so when we saw that they had just pushed this, meta protocol field, and you can basically do the same thing as BRC20, but in a more compressed data format. This was in early December when like clogging the mempool was still a big part of the conversation. So we were like, okay, this seems like the best of both worlds, where we can deploy the token Moto, MOTO. That's not a BRC20, so the ticker's free.
Yeah.
And then also like this data is going to be more compressed than BRC20s are. So it's going to take up less space in the blocks, which means you can do more transactions per block. People can mint more, they can transfer more, etc. And so yeah, in doing that, we basically realized like, okay, if we make our own version of CBRC, then we have free reign to like experiment with DeFi in the BRC20 stack before the L1F like gives us permission to do that. Nice. Like you really asked to do things if you want in BRC20. And so it became basically like our own experimental playground because we want like the main focus for us since taking over Oshi and turning it into Moto is we're going to do Uniswap on Bitcoin. It's not going to be something where it's like or near Uniswap. Like we are going to figure out how to do smart contracts and Uniswap on Bitcoin. And so, yeah, Moto Swap basically became with CBRC, like we tested out putting contracts on the indexer before putting contracts on chain.
Right. You have to also remember that at this time, this is like January December, January of last year and this year, like this was before BRC 22.0 was an idea. This is before the massive runes hype. So like we were getting told when we're talking about CBRC 20 and how it's cheaper and more efficient and takes up less space and it improves like a lot of things about BRC 20. And then on top of that, we have an indexer that we can push updates to, unlike, again, back then, this is still kind of technically a problem with BRC 20 today, they couldn't upgrade the protocol. And then there was a bunch of people saying, there's nothing that's ever going to be wrong with there's nothing that's wrong with BRC 20. It's going to be the best standard forever. And anyone who is saying that anything else is an idiot, and runes won't be anything. And we'll never need programmability on Bitcoin. It'll just, everyone's going to be cool with, Orti's going to flip Bitcoin in market cap. Like, you had all these crazy fucking takes at this time. And so people like rail on us a little bit now for trying to experiment and trying to put forth a better idea and an improvement on BRC 20 then. Like now when we have this more programmable landscape and everyone is sort of on the same page of something needs to be upgraded here in order to like have a better market. Back then, we were getting shit on for like trying to experiment and trying to push the needle forward. And people were like, everything's fine. Everyone's like this. Oh, everything's fine with the current market. And so we were just trying to say, here's a solution. Here's an option for this stuff. If you want smart contracts on Bitcoin, build it into the indexer side. And so that's what we started doing. And then we actually got a full build of Moto Swap live on the testnet. It built into the indexer side. And so again, like, and an important thing about CBRC 20 is that from the beginning, and it always was like this, it said it on the website, it said it everywhere. This is an experimental standard, right? It was just us doing our best to try and push forward like what we wanted to see in the space, how we wanted to see programmability emerge. And like, again, like we caught a lot of shit back then, even from Domo and the L1F that were telling us that's a bad idea, blah, blah, blah. And then 3 months later, they released their own spec for pretty much the exact thing that we were doing, which was BRC 22.0 is fundamentally the exact same thing we were doing with CBRC 20. So, you know, there's all this, we've kind of had this pattern to some degree of like, we talk about something and everyone's like, oh no, this doesn't need to change, blah, blah, blah. And then 3 months later, all of a sudden the exact same people are saying, here's our awesome change to the exact same thing we were flooding before, you know? So, you know, sometimes it's a little bit of a case of like being a little bit too early to ideas. Also, like Danny and I are like, we're an indie team. Like we don't have the backing of the cabal, whatever that means. We don't have, like, we've just been trying to participate in the market and do our best to put forth products that like make sense and give a better trading experience. Like we're traders at the end of the day. So we know what we want to see as traders. And we've just been trying to give that experience, not only to ourselves, but like to everybody else in the market. So that's really like the fundamental basis of what CBRC is and was. And then, I'll kind of pass it back to Danny because we got MotoSwap live to the testnet, but then we kind of ran into an issue.
But but basically, like we went to ETH Denver and we had a booth and we had a speaking slot as well. And, you know, in the Bitcoin space, maybe having a DEX where you have like a token standard and now there's one new thing it can do, like a DEX, right? That's impressive to the Bitcoin space, which is very, very niche. But to the broader, you know, DeFi space or the smart contract space, the ETH side of things, people thought it was cool. But the second or third question we always get at, they ask, how does this work? And then, okay, how do I do a stable coin? How do I do a lending protocol? How do I do a total tax on it? How do I do a yield farm? There's all of these different, like, a DEX is one thing, but there are many, many things that you want to do past it. And as soon as you bring a new functionality to a token standard, people are going to want more functionality, right? So that's why we moved away from the smart contract on the indexer side kind of approach, because every single time that you do that, like, okay, this is literally what the L1F is dealing with right now with BRC20, where Unisat made the BRC20 swap module. That's very cool, but nobody can fork that, and nobody has an easy way to like make another one of those. If somebody wanted to make a lending protocol in BRC20 that's protocol level, they would have to completely re-upgrade the entire BRC20 standard again to now support this one new thing. And then if somebody wants to do a token with a tax on it, they have to do the same thing over and over and over again. So it's like, you have ETH where I can deploy anything that I want, or I can, fork someone else's code. I can basically copy and paste someone else's code if it's been verified. So you have that for the ETH world, and then the Bitcoin world is like, to do one thing, you need a bunch of companies to agree on letting you do that one thing. It's kind of like retarded.
Yeah.
You know
what I say to this? Like, if that's what people are funding, right, the whole CBRCs. And by the way, you guys, people think you guys are cool in the chat because I did a poll. I said, what do you think of them? Are they cool? You're not too sure. You need more time. They said, cool. So I'll just say this. You remember when Ordinals Now came out and the Ordfluencers were, and everybody else, even myself, was making fun of the red laser eye guys, how they were crying and like all that? I feel as though the same people who are making fun of them are turning into red laser eye guys themselves with all this bullshit, right? That's the best way to describe it. And the moment you tell them that, they laugh. Oh, yeah. They don't say nothing else. So they're contradicting themselves, right? We want to invite innovation. We want to push the boundaries and the limitations of what we think Bitcoin can or can't do. And I'm all for that shit. Let's move on here now to Moto Swap. I know you guys did mention it a bit already. Is there any FUD with Moto Swap, or am I just creating FUD right now by just saying that?
I mean, the FUD is like Danny and Chad took over a 900K market cap token that was completely illiquid, and then have worked on that for a year to now it's $65 million market cap. So that's the FUD for Moto Swap. People just, again, they a lot of teams in the space have made big promises and then not really followed through on them, including BRC20 team, TAP team, ARC20, BRC100, even CBRC, right? Like all of these teams over the past year have really promised big things. And not really many of them, if any of them, have followed through on, putting anything out. I mean, even the Tap and Track guys, he like renamed his protocol to Promises because he promised a bunch of shit that never came out. Yeah.
I don't know that's not a good brand name, bro. Promises, like, what about broken promises? I don't know.
Here's at the end of the day, like, even in the promises that we've made, right, with what we were trying to accomplish with CBRC20, like, in trying to innovate on Bitcoin, and this goes for every project that Danny mentioned, whether there's good intentions or bad intentions, that's not really like, I don't know the truth behind any project on the inside, but like, all I can tell you is on our end, all we've tried to do is our best in terms of trying to innovate and building on Bitcoin. Anyone who's done it, anyone who's actually tried to build
easy
on Bitcoin, will tell you it's fucking hard as shit.
Yeah.
It's hard as fuck.
100%.
And we're in completely
Dude, especially with
territory.
new protocols, new standards, new fucking this and that, and then with Bitcoin's limitations, it's like, you know what it is? It's like, those magician shows, like where the guy's in a straitjacket in like a reinforced fucking cube, and then they dump him in the water, and he has to get out of it, and it's like that. It could be done,
dude.
But
Like
it's fucking hard.
our developer says building on Bitcoin's like trying to assemble a rocket while it's in mid-flight. Like we're building in a place, we're trying to bring functionality to a blockchain that fundamentally doesn't have any of this stuff built in natively. So we're trying, and there's a bunch of different approaches that people are trying. People are trying approaches from the TAP side, they're trying one approach. From CBRC, we tried a different approach. Then obviously we have Opnet, which is, in our opinion, of course we're biased, but like the best approach to bring programmability to Bitcoin. But a lot of people are trying to push the needle forward now, which I think is like, if this was the mindset that people had in January or December, I think that we would be a lot further along. And I'm really just glad that it's happening now. And again, like at the end of the day, no matter what, as long as people are doing their best, and then this is why I think our community stands behind us. And I think this is reflective in the stuff that we put out and the approach that we've taken. And we try and be as honest as possible about our entire journey on this stuff. Like, as Danny said, this is the fourth time we've really explained this story publicly. We go through it every single time, and we're not like trying to hide anything or whatever, right? Like, we've been publicly trying to like innovate as best
and
as
I feel that,
can.
bro. Listen, I feel that and I see that. I really do, right? Again, like I was kind of like, it caught me off guard when I just randomly saw Mark and you guys talking. And Mark, I really like Mark a lot. And I was like, oh man, that was a well done interview. And it was like things that I didn't know about. And when I saw you in the interview, I never seen you, right? Although we've communicated, I didn't know it was Chad Master. Not that we're like, before we had a relationship, but we did cross paths here and there. I was like, oh, fuck, it's that guy. Okay, right? And then I reached out to you and said, hey, what's up? What you guys doing kind of thing? Or I don't know who reached out to who, but yeah, that's how that's going down there. As people are coming in, that's great. Let's get on to more constructive topics here. Some alpha, if you will. Because, guys, look, whether you like them or not, I feel they have alpha. I feel they got skin in the game. I feel like they know things, more things than I do in certain, areas and vice versa. So I think we could feed off of each other. So let's get right to it. Very basic question here, boys. So meta protocol versus token standard. What's the difference there? Because you guys do define Opnet, and I know it's very simple for you guys to say this. He's about to answer already. You can do this in your sleep. But for the average guy out there, the normie, what's the difference between an Opnet meta protocol opposed to, say, like a BRC20 or a Rune's token standard?
You see, it's very interesting because like BRC20 is kind of unique in the sense that it's like a meta protocol, right? So meta protocol is just the general term that people use for things that are built namely on top of Bitcoin, but really built on top of like another blockchain that isn't a chain itself. So something like ordinals is a meta protocol because it's not like a layer 2 or a side chain or anything like that. It's just a way to interpret data on Bitcoin in a different, outcome than what happens on Bitcoin itself. So that term meta protocol is just kind of all encompassing for anything that is on Bitcoin or any other, UTXO chain that isn't like a side chain itself. Traditionally, a token standard like ERC20 or take the Binance Smart Chain token standard or Base, like really ERC20 token standard is a minimum requirement of functionalities that your token has to have for it to work across every single like dApp provider in the EVM space. So for ERC20 tokens, there's 5 base things that your token needs to have. It needs to have an approve function. It needs to be able to transfer. There needs to be holders of it. And the other 2, I don't remember off the top of my head. But it's kind of weird because like in the Bitcoin space, a token standard has kind of become this concept of like, here's all of the defined things that your token can do. So on Bitcoin, basically every BRC20 token is like a fork of Ordi, right? Like right. Ordi was the first one. Yeah. And then every single other, even 5 ticker, 6 ticker, whatever, it still does the same things as Ordi does. Yeah. So
it's like on Ethereum, for example. On Ethereum, I can have a token and Danny can have a token and you can have a token. And all of our token contracts can look different and do different things. Mine can have a tax. Danny's can have a burn function. Yours can have a reflection function on it, right? Like our token contracts can look fundamentally completely different, and they're still all considered ERC20 tokens. And that's what a smart contract-based token standard looks like. And then, again, what Danny was saying, in the complete inverse, in Bitcoin, so far, the token standards have defined all you can do. The only things that you can do with your token is defined within the token standard, which again, it fundamentally makes no sense. It creates this completely counterintuitive and really limiting environment for trading, which is why we don't see a lot of like on-chain trading of these tokens. When BRC20 really took off is because of Binance and like exchange listings. That's where all the volume
You're right. You fucking nailed it, bro. Because that's when it started to pop off. I remember when it went to fucking Gate.io, like shitty exchange, but it gave a way to actually trade it in a liquid way, right? And that's when it popped up. When centralized exchanges came in, and then obviously Binance, it really blew up. Sorry to interrupt, but I just had to interject there. It's correct.
Any token on Bitcoin that does any significant amount of volume is not doing a ton of on-chain volume. It's doing completely off-chain volume on exchanges, right? And like that is a huge fundamental issue in my opinion, because there is no way to like do any liquid trading on-chain, which again, like it's great for projects that are able to get exchange listings, but it's so limiting. Like what is the environment we see on Solana or Ethereum or Base or any of these other chains, right? We see tokens launch every single day that from the moment they're launched to, $10 million market cap or $20 million market cap or $100 million market cap, whatever, they can run to that price in the same day and do, $50 million of on-chain trading volume before they even hit an exchange, right?
Yeah.
Average guy in their basement can have a good idea for a meme and launch it, pair it on a DEX, and then open trading. And then that same night, the token can hit 100 or 1000x without ever needing, all of the connections that's required and the money up front to pay exchanges and all this stuff, right? So that's partially the reason why I think we see such a limited market on Bitcoin is not so much because of the limitations of Bitcoin's like speed and block times. I think people are okay with that. I think a lot of people overrate how much that's an issue. I think it's much more the actual trading experience, and it all comes down to the underlying stack, right? All of these token standards, except for runes, are built on top of the ORD client. So you have Bitcoin, then you have the ORD client, which is one layer off chain, and you have another layer off chain, which is this token standard. So you have multiple layers off chain where these tokens are living, and it creates a ton of complications. Like there's an infinite amount of complications, and you're trying to build all this stuff into the ORD client, which is an NFT protocol, which is literally never meant to do any of this stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
So that sort of like bridges the gap to like where we started with Opnet, and like we had to take a step back with CBRC and Moto swap and say, what is our inevitable goal here? Is our goal to, hey, we just want to make this DEX because we want to pump Moto token and save everyone's bags? Like, yeah, we want to save everyone's bags. Yes, we want to see a DEX on Bitcoin. But our dream from the start was we want to see DeFi on Bitcoin. We want to see a full permissionless, non-custodial environment.
But guess what? You can't just do it the way it is right now with all these fucking token standards. Oh, well, here's a square. Let's put it into the circle slot.
Exactly.
Okay, let's do it. Like, fuck, bro. So I don't know why. This is why I get passionate. It's like, does this even require a fucking debate at this point? Like, why can't everybody just realize this? The sky is blue, the grass is green. You just can't do it on Bitcoin. We don't argue with the sky being blue.
It's like bag bias, man. I think that was really part of what drove us for so long, like especially in the early days. It's because we didn't have like big bags of free BRC20 tokens that we minted, right? Like even though we were early, we were kind of waiting. I mean, my personal take was like there's no chance that BRC20 can take off because there's no liquidity pools. And then I severely underestimated the market, how badly.
Bro, China came in too, right? Yeah. Pumped it up.
I mean, the Chinese Bitcoin market and just the Eastern Bitcoin market in general is so much less culty than the Western Bitcoin market is. So it's really refreshing. Yeah, but sorry, to answer directly, in the case of Opnet, comparing a meta protocol to a token standard, we have Opnet as the overarching meta protocol. So it's just basically like a smart contract engine. So it's like the ordinal client, but instead of reading the chain for NFTs, it's reading the chain for smart contracts and contract interactions. Like that's basically everything in the ETH world.
Take ORD completely out of the equation. Like the ORD.
ORD's not involved in this at all.
Yeah.
But we have multiple different token standards within the Opnet meta protocol because it's just like Ethereum. So literally, what we're doing right now on the back end is we're starting with the most widely used ERC standards. So ERC20, ERC721, and ERC1155 are like the three main ERC contracts. And so right now we're porting all of those. There's a contract library of standards called Open Zeppelin. And so we're porting Open Zeppelin over from Solidity into assembly script so you can use it with Opnet. So you'll be able to do, ERC20 tokens with the tax. We call them OP20 tokens. You can do them with the tax. You can make them rebasable. You can make them deflationary. You can do whatever you want. And then you can also do NFTs that are 721. You can do NFTs that are 1155. We're also working on a governance token model. So there's like an unlimited, amount of possibilities you can do now because it's smart.
And that's why meta protocols are more powerful because this is what you could do, right? The limitations aren't as much within this meta protocol compared to the constraints of Bitcoin itself, right? The code with Bitcoin. Is that correct?
I mean, with meta protocols, it's literally like you're making a video game. Like
I was
you're
going to say,
on-chain. Yeah,
to give people more context, as we get viewers coming in, I'm going to get to your question there, Port City. To ask them, don't worry, and keep on bringing your questions. I do apologize for our viewers on Twitter. I messed up with the chat there. Just come on over to YouTube and you'll be able to participate. But yeah, so back to the meta protocol side of things here. You guys, and this is what I like, right? When you have skin in the game, you go from an investor to becoming inquisitive, to doing research, to learning. Then you want to get the building bug, and then maybe things didn't work out, and then you could take a lot of information from that and put it towards something else to learn, because now you got experience, and now you're speaking these things, what you're saying, all these right things, all these terminologies based off of what? Your fucking experience. So this is why I just tell people, and look, the poll's going up now. You guys are at 50%, like they are cool. It was 42. So people now, they're hearing you, right, for themselves, and they're understanding, and they're starting to say, okay, yeah, these guys know what they're saying. But yeah, so sorry. Go ahead as more people come in. Danny, I think I interrupted you about something.
It's just literally like designing a video game. The concept of a meta protocol is completely open ended at this point. And when BRC 20 came out, I think it really like pigeonholed people into thinking basically there's bag bias and everybody, if we just make this one thing work, the name BRC 20 is so good that like people were kind of willing to overlook the technical limitations and believe that something better is going to happen. Yeah. It just like simply didn't though. And I think runes kind of were the wake up moment for a lot of people to realize like, okay, BRC 20 can
save some of that ammunition later on. We got runes as one of the topics. Okay. Trust me, it's going to get good. It's going to get real good then.
Okay, well, wait, just going specifically to Opnet then, like basically the step we had to take back with CBRC 20 was, why are we building on the ORD client? The ORD client is not made to do any of this stuff. What if there was, instead of multiple layers off of the ORD client, what if we cut the ORD client out and made our own client that from the ground up was built to do all the things that we want to do, right? It's built for smart contract functionality from the ground up. And like, what are ordinals fundamentally, right? You're putting data into Bitcoin blocks, and then Casey's design of his off-chain interpreter basically is looking at that data and assigning people ownership. It's tracking and serializing Satoshis, and it's an NFT protocol. So it basically makes his video game design makes Bitcoin an NFT. Every piece of Bitcoin now has a serial number. You can now track those serial numbers, and you can assign. You can basically assign those serial numbers to pieces of arbitrary data. Like
dead on, dude.
You've always been able to put arbitrary data into Bitcoin blocks. Yeah. Casey just made a scheme that allows you to track that data and gives you this off-chain ownership of this on-chain data. So the step that we took with Opnet is saying, okay, that's a great design for what Casey wants to do in terms of making an NFT protocol. We shouldn't try and fit DeFi and smart contracts and all this extra functionality into his thing. We should make our own thing that's built from the ground up to do all that stuff. So the way Opnet fundamentally works is we're putting data into Bitcoin blocks, but that data is what we like to call smart inscriptions or smart contracts. So you're putting your smart contract into a Bitcoin block, and then you're interacting with those smart contracts through Bitcoin transactions. And then off-chain, very similar to how the ORD client works, the indexer is keeping track of all the interactions that have happened and providing you a state of all those interactions. So, on a little bit of a deeper level, when you deploy a smart contract, it uses TapScript to create a Bitcoin address where the smart contract actually lives. And then that Bitcoin address is sort of your virtualized smart contract address. And when you are interacting with that smart contract address, you're literally sending your Bitcoin transactions with contract call data to that Bitcoin address where the contract is stored. This is a feature of TapScript, but that address has a no spend condition on it. So even though you're sending Bitcoin transactions to that address, the person who deployed it can't access that Bitcoin or anything. This was all audited just for context as well. But basically this creates the ability to do smart contract addresses on Bitcoin, where now people can deploy smart contracts, whether it's tokens or whether it's NFTs or whether it's applications. All this stuff can live on Bitcoin. So the smart contracts live on Bitcoin. Your smart contract interactions live on Bitcoin. And the only piece that isn't on Bitcoin is keeping track of the state. And so very similar to the ORD client, where you're just looking at all this. The beauty of Bitcoin is that it's this objective ledger, right? It's this immutable objective ledger. And so using Bitcoin for this purpose, this is really, I think, the biggest innovation of ordinals is not so much how Casey designed it so much. It's just that the way he used Bitcoin is this kind of novel concept of like, no matter what, and this is sort of proven time after time with ordinals, Like, for example, there's, let's just say 1,000 ORD clients out there.
Yeah.
Anyone can run one and edit the ORD client to like say that person owns every single ordinal, but no one uses the endpoint provided by that like bad ORD client, because there's just no incentive for people to use that, right? And so there's no actual consensus mechanism behind ordinals, but there's this social consensus that if you provide a bad endpoint, no one's going to use your ORD client. With Opnet, there's deeper and better safety checks where you can't edit your database locally, or else your indexer basically bricks.
Basically
down.
every block, the same way that like Bitcoin has a hash of all the transactions that create, the block header, right?
Mm-hmm.
The same concept is applied to Opnet, where we take the Bitcoin block, the Bitcoin transactions, but then we also pull all of the Opnet specific transactions, and then we create a hash of all of those transactions, and then a hash of the state that is, changed from those transactions. And so if you change, even if you change a 1 to a 0, you change a single byte of data locally, your hash just won't check. And yeah, like Chad said, your indexer will basically brick. Like, it'll just crash. Yeah.
Interesting. Well, in-depth explanation there. That's for sure. We do have one of your favorite fans in the chat. He goes by the name of Shilly Shizzy. And he says, I have a good time with Shizzy all the time. Just guy makes me laugh. He's saying, why is the Oshi Twitter account in my DMs? Maybe you guys have a connection there. You can tell him. I'm joking. No, they don't know. As I said, they're not affiliated with them in any way. He's not saying you guys would know. I'm just putting it out there. He mentions that. There is somebody else here. I lost your question. It's a little bit off topic, but not really, if you guys don't mind. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so Port City, this is not the one, but I think he was talking about the first token on CRBCs. Is there anything in store for people? I don't know. I know this is a whole separate different entity that's not related to that. I just asked just for his behalf. I don't know.
It would be very unfair of us to move to a new token standard and not reward the same people who believed in the old token standard, right? So again, just for context, the first token that we CTO'd, we ran up from a 900K market cap and completely illiquid to a $65 million market cap and fairly liquid, will be completely liquid soon. So like there is stuff that will come to the early CBRC guys. I don't want to say exactly what yet, but we have in no way forgotten about those guys.
So I want to say something here. It's not all rainbows and unicorns. I got a little bit of a, how do I say this? It's not pushback or anything, but with Opnet. And this is the thing, right? So we're going to talk about Opcat next and Fractal, right? And it's not pushback. It's just how I operate. I would say this. I've always said this before in other people's shows on my show, and I stand true to this. I believe, and what you guys are doing is fucking amazing, right? I want to make that unmistakably clear. I'm not trying to shoot down on it or anything. I want to make that clear. But having programmability on layer 1, I believe there's going to be a definite market for that, right? For layer 1 assets, it's pure native assets, the slow-fi, right? You guys are dubbing it that. I like that. And there will be a market for that. But don't you believe, like, when we look at these other chains like Ethereum, you need to build a faster chain than Ethereum, and they build these other chains, and Solana's like faster, it's cheaper, it's more scalable, and it's programmable. Like what Fractal is doing, and I don't want to talk too much about Fractal since it's our next two topics, but don't you think that to have a full breathing product that's going to be super successful, maybe I'm wrong, it should have all of those elements, or are you serving a different demographic?
So we're going to talk about Fractal a bit. I don't know if you want to officially move to the next topics, but
that's fine. Well, how about this?
The answer
okay, let's go Fractal then. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, the answer is definitely yes. So just like we've been thinking about smart contracts, specifically a DEX on Bitcoin for like a year and a half straight. Like literally is basically what we think and discuss 24/7. Chad and I are roommates in real life, so this is on the grind constantly.
You guys should just be sitting next to each other then. What the fuck in different rooms?
I'm literally sitting right below him.
Go ahead.
And so basically like back in March when we put out the testnet version of Moto swap on CBRC, we hadn't really put a lot of thought specifically for like MEV. block reorgs. We were really more focused on the functionality of, just getting this thing working rather than optimizing it for, long-term sustainability. And so we kind of switched gears a little bit and started talking to, we actually spoke with Luke Dasher, who is kind of, he's like, he's the guy that everyone in Ordinals kind of considers him like public enemy number one, right? But our approach to him was like, I'm not a big ordinal believer either. Like I think ordinals are dope. I think that, there's no problem with them, but they're not the future of finance. And so we were able to form like a pretty nice relationship with the ocean mining guys, specifically Luke. And it really came from a place of like not trying to debate him on whether this stuff is good or bad, but more like, how do you see, let's say a meta protocol comes out and fills the blocks 10 times more than ordinals or BRC20 ever did. Like what, as a Bitcoin dev, what do you think the solution to that is going to be, and how does that go down? And the one thing that we heard consistently from the Ocean guys, from other Bitcoin maxis who didn't really like ordinals, was you need a merge mined chain to put these inscriptions on and have it, but you can have it be faster, they can be bigger blocks, et cetera, et cetera. We heard this very abstract concept kind of floating around. We even actually met Luke in real life in Dubai, and we sat down for like 4 hours and just talked about merge mining because it was a really interesting concept. And so, we kind of had in our heads, we're not going to make our own chain, we're making a meta protocol, but we were looking for like a merge mine thing, kind of just keeping aware of that term. And then in May, we started to hear about Fractal, and it was like, shit. Yeah. It seems like this probably is the real answer. And Unisat, the biggest company in all of Ordinals, they have also landed at that same answer. I think even way before us, they just publicly came out when we became aware as well. And so we really started digging into Fractal basically for the reasons that you just said, which is like, I think there is a need for DeFi and smart contracts on the L1 of Bitcoin. And there probably will be, a 6-month period of hype where the blocks are just filled and everybody's trying to do everything on the slow chain. But eventually, when Bitcoin whales step in, if they start doing stable swaps or loans against their Bitcoin, it's going to become very expensive to do, something like pump fun on Bitcoin mainnet is just not really going to make sense. And so Fractal, not only Fractal, but also like Bell's Coin or Litecoin.
I love Bell's. Dude, I love Bell's Coin, by the way. I did an interview with the guy yesterday.
Yeah, Adam. With Adam?
Yeah, Adam McBride. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah. I mean, they're really dope. And
I think he said he had you guys on his show. I think he told me. I believe so. Yeah, cool.
He sure did. There's a lot of synergy between teams there because, there's a number of reasons. I think that going back to like layer one Bitcoin has kind of always been this focus of ours, and it still remains the focus. That's where Opnet is born. That's where Opnet lives. But the beauty of Opnet's design is that it's a meta protocol. So just like ordinals can live on other blockchains, Opnet can also plug into these other blockchains and be like a smart contract solution.
Sorry, Chad, is it Opnet will be compatible with Bitcoin compatible networks or any kind of chain?
It's technically any UTXO chain. Any UTXO chain. Technically, you could modify Opnet to work on Cardano. Like it really is modular in the UTXO scheme. Yeah.
Interesting.
Right. And look, this is something I see with a lot of these layer twos, right? Is that I see a million pitch decks. Like Danny and I are active investors, and we're also we
capture
do a lot of
Bitcoin's liquidity. Let's capture Bitcoin's liquidity, right?
Literally, exactly. I mean, how many pitch decks or whatever come out and say we're going to tap into $1 trillion on Bitcoin, and all these Bitcoin whales are going to move to our layer 2 solution. But I mean, at the end of the day, these Bitcoin whales that we're talking about, this $1 trillion of liquidity, never moved to Ethereum. In fact, these guys think that Ethereum is a Bitcoin layer 2 scam, right? So the idea that you're going to get any significant amount of liquidity to move to in basically an EVM fork chain that says that they're somehow related to Bitcoin is a pipe dream that I don't think is ever going to happen. And so I think that number one, if you do ever want to tap into that type of liquidity, I think that the only way that you're ever going to be able to do that is by providing them one, layer one functionality, and two, applications that make sense to them, right? These are not guys who are interested in speculating on JPEGs, right? These are guys who, what's their main dream? I want to swap my Bitcoin for a stable coin on chain, on
very
Bitcoin,
well said.
on a DEX.
I agree.
I don't want to KYC. I don't want to bridge to another chain. I don't want to use an exchange. I want to swap my Bitcoin for a stable on chain. And then, again, some of these guys want to be able to lend their Bitcoin out and get some sort of safer yield, because you have to think a lot of these guys got burned by Celsius and FTX and all these centralized yield on Bitcoin platforms. And so, they already, even just yield on Bitcoin for some of these guys is a negative word. So providing these sort of decentralized applications that are trustless and without custody on Bitcoin layer 1, that's the only way you really tap into that liquidity. So just how Danny said, like, I see the first 6 months of this playing out where there's a lot of craziness. There's a lot of cranked up Ponzi's. There's a lot of meme coins and a ton of crazy activity, and blocks are totally filled. But once there's enough trust in these smart contracts on Bitcoin, and these Bitcoin whales actually do move in, and there's solid stable coins and solid lending protocols that give stable yield of like 5%, 3%, whatever, these Bitcoin whales are going to be the main market for anything Bitcoin layer 1 related, which is really where I think Fractal plays into our plan, because there's going to be a lot of activity and a lot of users who want to transact faster and cheaper, and do a lot of the games that they want to play on Bitcoin, but there just simply isn't the space for everyone to play everything they want to play on Bitcoin layer 1.
Well, also like Fractal, the term L2 in the Bitcoin space is just like pretty universally not technically correct. It's like a narrative term.
When I had Jeff on the program, I said, "Bro, are you a fucking L2 or what are you?" He goes, "No, I'm a sidechain." I said, "So why are you guys saying L2?" He's like, "Well, if everybody's saying it, I'm gonna say it too." You know what I mean? So, but go on, Danny.
Yeah, so I think L2 is just like kind of this, the technical meaning of it is completely lost at this point to the market. And it really just means like a cheaper and faster way to do the same things you're doing on one chain, right? And so the first wave of Bitcoin L2s really, really failed the assignment like pretty hard by essentially not feeling like an L2 at all. Like when I use an ETH L2, right? Yeah. My wallet stays the same. My address stays the same. Pretty much all my dApps stay the same. I still use Uniswap on other chains. The only thing that changes is maybe the type of currency I'm using is gas token. So like, Binance Smart Chain and ETH, you don't use the same thing there. But even on some L2s, you do use Ethereum, like Base Chain or Arbitrum. So it basically like the first wave of Bitcoin L2s had a really hard time reaching adoption with people playing on Bitcoin now, because it doesn't, if I have to bridge my tokens from Unisat wallet and a BC1P address to a 0x wallet on an ETH wallet like MetaMask, I'm on an ETH L2. I'm not on a Bitcoin L2, right?
Right.
So Fractal is really positioned I have a lot of respect for Unisat in the sense that they literally made trading JSON files feel like you're trading tokens for a year and a half. Like they are just the kings of the narrative. And so in terms of the L2 experience, it's their wallet. It's going to be their marketplaces, and BRC20 is like pretty much Unisat's token standard. So if I am using Unisat as a marketplace and a BC1P address, and I suddenly want to use a faster and cheaper version of that, using Fractal, where I just click in my wallet and change the network, and boom, my address stays the same. It makes like perfect sense.
That's exactly how I explained it too. Yeah, with why Fractal feels just so much different to me here than what we've seen before. And again, to the things you guys just mentioned, I feel like it's trying to restore the same core values, but little tweaks and enhancements that's needed to trade the way we want to trade for high volume type of products. And I think, and that's where the interest comes. Like, I think when crypto really took off, guys, is when we saw the introduction to Uniswap, right? Like DeFi, right? So DeFi, Ethereum bull run, and then after that, we heard about liquidity pools, Uniswap. It really started to take off, and I think with Uniswap, it's just like faster trades, but that needs to say that how that's going to be the winner. I just feel as though there's two different markets. Layer 1 is going to be needed, and I think what Fractal is doing is going to be needed too. So it depends on what you're into, and there's a lot of camps who value Layer 1 over anything else, and other people who just want to trade in a better environment, right? That's more flexible, and I think it really solves it on all fronts. Yeah, go ahead.
Well,
what we're going to see, in my opinion, is, okay, so you have this conversation on Ethereum where L2s kind of fragment liquidity, right? That's sort of like the narrative around ETH L2s, and there's a bunch of them and they all fragment liquidity. But I think that stems from the fact that ETH itself is still a high throughput chain. On Bitcoin, it's completely different, right? Like a Bitcoin is not a high throughput chain. So instead of liquidity being fragmented on Bitcoin layer 1, liquidity actually is going to need places to flow because there's this stopper in the middle. And if there's this much liquidity trying to get through Bitcoin layer 1, it's not going to be able to get through. And so It needs to be able to have multiple places to flow to. And Fractal Bitcoin being like their unique approach is that they're not trying to solve for basic functionality on Bitcoin. They're just simply trying to solve for scale first and then address functionality later. And that, to me, is really the masterstroke of Fractal, is that you have this ability to, for example, Fractal is going to have all sorts of different games, right? You're going to have obviously BRC20 and Pizza Swap and the Opcat applications and anything else that might come out. But like all that stuff can all live on Fractal because it's this higher throughput chain. All this stuff can live on Fractal and not be competing for block space. And then on top of that, obviously, what we plan to do is, Opnet is an open source meta protocol, right? It's just a platform that allows people to build applications totally permissionlessly. And so there's going to be a bunch of applications that are built on layer 1 Bitcoin using Opnet. And all those applications can now co-deploy on not only Fractal, but Bell's coin once they implement Taproot. Yeah. But like, let's simply focus on Fractal right now. Mm-hmm. All of these applications are going to be able to deploy on both Fractal and Bitcoin layer 1. And then the users get to choose, literally just select on your application, what network do I want to use? Do I want to use Bitcoin layer 1? Exactly. Do I want to use Fractal Bitcoin? Yeah. Do I want to use Bells after that? And so again, whether it's a pump fund or whether it's just a Moto swap DEX or whether it's a perp DEX or something, perp DEX, right? Like something like that where you're trading with leverage, you're probably going to want to be on a higher throughput chain.
Yes.
So the users have, I think this is the most important thing, is this user experience. That's what's lacking the most on Bitcoin right now.
Very much
is choice and options for users. And that's what we really are hoping to provide here with Opnet, is like giving people the ability to choose between, you want to be able to have the best user experience possible, and offering like deployment on Fractal for these applications, not only for builders, but also for users. That is just the only way I think I see this really working and going down. So yeah, again, we're super, super excited about Fractal, and like from our side of like Opnet and our application Moto Swap, or everything else that builds using Opnet, which is like 30 plus projects that are building right now using Opnet. Nice. A lot of those projects are also going to build on Fractal. And then, again, the beauty of all this is like, as enjoyers of progress, enjoyers of innovation ourselves, there's going to be a lot of really cool innovation that happens on Fractal that's not even Opnet related, right? There's going to be a ton if Opnet's not even in the picture at all, there's going to be a ton of really exciting stuff that happens on Fractal regardless. So, as traders and people who are just fans of seeing cool stuff happen, I think we're really excited to play as well.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. You're an enjoyer of innovation like myself in Bitcoin ecosystem. I'm sure you're not an enjoyer of sub 10K ordinals, though. Remember that shit? I'm going to get to that shit soon. By the way, guys, if you're here, this is the alpha. Then the last tail end of this few topics here is going to be some hot takes. We're going to be talking about runes. We're going to be talking about dog. We're going to be talking about tap. And let's see where that goes. But, what I tell people is this, Danny, and for the viewers watching here and Chad, when people see Fractal, they're like, oh, great, we need another sidechain. Oh, great, we don't need another fork. Where the fuck was that energy when runes came out? Why didn't you say, oh, great, we don't need another fucking standard? But no, they don't want to question that shit because the wind was blowing left. Everybody was running this way, so I'm going to go with the fucking wind wherever it blows, and they got wrecked. Had you listened to me and others out there, you would have saved your damn Bitcoin, and you wouldn't be in a sorry mess that you're in right now. So that's what I'll say to those people, right? Why another sidechain Fractal? Well, why didn't you ask why another fucking stupid token standard? I ain't going to do shit other than get you wrecked. Don't make sense.
Yep. And also, Fractal too, like to people who have that sort of like reaction to Fractal, I think that they're completely missing the point. Like Fractal is not just another sidechain. All the other sidechains so far have been
Yeah, hold in
EVM.
Chad, hold in on that, please. Yeah. Tell them exactly what you mean by that.
All these other side chains have been completely EVM based. So like how Danny said, like your wallet completely changes. You're using an EVM chain. Like 99% of the Bitcoin side chains right now are really kind of just ETH L2s that somehow tie to Bitcoin, whether they're using Bitcoin as or wrapped Bitcoin as ecosystem token somewhere. But all these chains also have their own gas token or governance token or some way that the VCs who funded it can make some money. And like, there's some cool, innovative ideas, right? Like, okay, you're Babylon with the Bitcoin staking, right? Like, these are cool ideas. It's just like we haven't seen a true Bitcoin L2. Oh, did we lose Dan?
It's okay. Yeah, just carry on. I don't know if he blocked it or what, but all good. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Fractal is going to give you the. There it is. Fractal is going to give you the most true to Bitcoin experience, and I think the biggest thing that has shown through is what's most important. A lot of people don't understand how ordinals really, really work. Deep down, they really don't understand how ordinals work.
Of course not.
A lot of people don't really understand the full tech stack of BRC20 or even runes. But what's important to the user? It's that user experience, and that is really where I think Fractal is going to shine. Is giving that user experience that makes people feel like they're using Bitcoin. And that, I think, is the most important thing to a lot of these users. It's not like, how are we going to do this? What's the tech stack behind all this stuff? Simply, keep it simple a little bit, right? Like that's that KISS sort of mentality of we forked Bitcoin, we merge mined it, we made it faster, we made it cheaper. Boom. Like, that is all you need for these side chains. You have programmability.
Dude, imagine complaining about something like Fractal Bitcoin that's actually going to bring real change, but then not complaining about a new token standard that's just going to be a fucking false mirage of what you think is going to happen and be okay with that. Fuck, bro. Reverse psychology. It mind fucks me. It's like, I don't know how I have to scream and tell people this. Like, what upsets me is not runes. It's not this or that. It's people comprehending this. How they don't comprehend it. Sorry, Danny, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I'm personally, like, I am very, very bearish on the players in Bitcoin right now. Like, I think there's a very big problem with the general audience of the space.
Yes, sir.
Which is that, like, they don't come from like a smart contract chain background, a lot of these people, right? Or they've only used, like, a lot of early Ordinal people were Solana people, which nothing against Solana people at all. It's just your expectations of Bitcoin just kind of working like that are going to be let down quite a bit. So I think that really this is why we're so, like, involved in the smart contract side and why we're really, really pushing this smart contract meta protocol is because, like, that's the only way that this market can kind of evolve to a way where things start to make sense to people. And we're just simply in a point where, like, again, like we spoke about earlier, BRC20s as a token standard, that concept doesn't exist anywhere else in any other blockchain where your token standard this is the only things you can do with it. So it's like this schism has happened in the Bitcoin space, and people have made a lot of money off it, which is, like, kind of fueling the problem. Is, like, people have gotten very rich off of believing these things that are kind of the antithesis to other chains. And I think bringing it back to, like, smart contracts and permissionless environments and, a kind of a more developer focused kind of environment, it should make things make a little more sense, I think.
Absolutely. And that brings us to Opcat. I'm sure you guys are proponents of Opcat, supporters of Opcat, right? Big time. Let's talk about this, and then we're going to get into more spicy topics like runes and etc. So, what's Opcat exactly, and how does that work with Opnet as well? Drop the knowledge on the people, please.
Yeah, so Opnet's pretty cool. Opcat is pretty cool. It's an opcode within Bitcoin's script language. So, most people think that Bitcoin doesn't have smart contracts. It's, like, kind of right. It has, like, dumb smart contracts, right? It's what's called not Turing complete. So to have, like, a fully fledged, very, very well thought out smart contract environment, you need to be Turing complete, like any other, machine or computer. And so Bitcoin's scripting language is not Turing complete, so it can only do very, very basic things right now. That's things like HTLCs, DLCs. It mainly has to do with like locking Bitcoin in a UTXO for a certain amount of time. And then TapScript is kind of like it's like a DLC upgrade to the script language that Bitcoin has itself, where it can do a little bit more things, but still not fully Turing complete. And so Opcat is very interesting because on Bitcoin itself, Opcat seems to be useful for like this thing called covenants, which basically means like you can make an L2 for Bitcoin that is, much easier, much safer to bridge from Bitcoin to this L2. It's kind of like Lightning Network, where it's like built into the protocol itself. Past that, on Bitcoin's L1, there is kind of this like, it stems from the BSV crew of people, because BSV has had Opcat active, for all 5 years it's been around. And so there's basically like a group of people coming from a BSV background who have messed around with Opcat on a BSV environment. And to them, Opcat like seems to make doing smart contracts, not so dumb, on the L1 itself, a little bit easier and more achievable to do. The issue with Bitcoin as an L1 having Opcat is it doesn't have Opcat right now, right? So they would need a BIP to pass, which is just a total nightmare scenario to really be kind of guiding through. But something like Fractal, which is a fork of Bitcoin, it's its own thing. I'm actually very excited to see this because there's basically been like a year of people talking about Opcat without anyone really building with it. Right. Even though it's available to build on BSV for 5 years, nobody wants to do that because BSV sucks. But now that we have Fractal, it should I don't know what's going to happen. I don't think anybody really does. I think there's a lot of openness. It could be really cool. It could be a nothing burger. We literally just don't know. And Fractal being like a playground, it's almost like a test and prod net. You know what I mean? Where people are going to be able to play around. Yes. The token is cheaper. It's not so expensive. So it's not so serious. When you're talking about putting Opcat on Bitcoin, people get really angry.
It's kind of like, are you a Bitcoin developer and you have extensive skills that never could be utilized? Well, here's your chance. You know what I mean? Go fuck about, right? Yeah, I totally
Dude, that's why guys like Jawei are so excited. Like from S-Script are so excited about something like Fractal, because here's a chance to be able to basically use 5 years of experimentation and development on his end.
Yes.
In prod with a bunch of users and with a lot of hype and a lot of opportunity, I think, to kind of show his stuff and show the possibilities of what Opcat could really do. And then I think that can also potentially better inform the Bitcoin developers on the BIP for mainnet Bitcoin Opcat as well. So I think, it's going to be a fascinating experience. I think it's going to be a really cool experiment as well. And I mean, Danny and myself are both really, really excited to kind of see what comes out of Opcat on Fractal, to see if there's any really cool applications that we want to play with. Again, take us out of the builder's hats and put us into the user's hats. I want to mess around. I want to see what is possible with Bitcoin. Our entire ethos is trying to push the limits of what we think is possible with Bitcoin, what other people think is possible. So if there's new options and new games to play, we're going to be right there lining up to play them too. So I'm super excited. I'm super bullish on what's possibly going to come out with that. And you're getting a lot of people put us in sort of this competition sort of narrative with Opcat, but it's just simply is not the case. Opcat is,
you know what it is though, Chad, in their defense, because it kind of caught me off guard when you hear Opcat and then op_net, you're like, oh fuck, that's a competitor, right? Maybe that's the thing. I don't know. Yeah, could be, right?
Little psyops, right?
Could be, yeah, exactly. Guys, so that is interesting. And you mentioned Yahweh. I actually had him on the channel too last week. He was speaking about it, and I told him, I was like, because he says he's from BSV, a little bit of Bitcoin Cash to your point, so you guys are dead on with that. And I said, bro, this must be your breakthrough fucking year, bro. With all those Opcat, happenings, you were waiting for this year. And he started to laugh, and, lo and behold, that's what's happening here. Look.
This is his moment, man. Again, BSV and BCH are quite honestly, take the stigma around the narrative and the genesis of those chains being created and stuff, they were kind of born out of this really negative conversation, the block size wars, it was this big battle, all this stuff, right? Like those places still to this day are ripe with innovators and people who are like trying to do the most to maximize Bitcoin. Because you have to think like the people who, aside from like the really culty Craig Wright is Satoshi types, which again, like you got to take those people completely out of the conversation to be able to sort through the who's who and like who's actually trying to innovate here. But like there are people building on those chains like Xiaowei who is not like philosophically attached to it. That's just the environment where he can best implement his experiments and try and push innovation on Bitcoin, right? Like he's done so much work on a chain that like doesn't have a lot of liquidity, doesn't have a lot of users, and is generally clowned by other people in the crypto space. But he's done a lot of incredible work there. So again, I think that and a lot of early ordinals builders, honestly, also came from that BSV world because they saw, okay, a lot of
everybody, even Unisats from there.
Yeah, a lot of these guys are not like, oh, I truly believe Craig Wright Satoshi. A lot of these guys are like, I'm a Bitcoin accelerationist.
Exactly. And this is how I look at it, It's like, well, if these guys who, let's just say they've been in the Bitcoin space for a long period of time, whatever, 8, 9, 10 years, whatever. And then you look at how they're attracted to BSV because of maybe Opcat and they think they could do more things there. Never turn out to be the case in terms of the popularity or the network effect, right? And then you hear Xiaowei say he used to work for Facebook. And then you hear Xiaowei say he's very excited for Opcat. Then you hear Xiaowei say that how, full disclosure, first time I want to make this announcement, we're making decentralized bridges to bring USDC and USDT to Fractal. And these people are highly intelligent, right? From an educational background, from a technical standpoint, from experience, and just Chinese people. They're just like naturally smart. And when you hear these smart people saying these things, building these things, and you hear all these normies in crypto saying, nah, bro, we don't need another one of this. We don't want that. It's like, it confirms what my brain is telling me. And I'm not the smartest guy, but I just feel as though I know how to use my brain. You know what I mean? And I feel as though if people actually take the fucking time and seriously use their brain and analyze things, look at all the fucking noise I hear on Twitter from word influencers and all these other people, it's actually not that hard to see, right? You'll understand it. So I think we're on the right side of history once again. Guys, look, the show must go on, and we getting real hot right now. Boys, what about prunes? I mean, fucking runes. Oh my God. Where do we begin? One of you guys want to start? Because
yeah, I mean, we did actually an interview on the Block Runner back in early March, where we talked about like a month and a half before runes came out, where we talked about runes and kind of the way we saw it going down, and it went down pretty much. You can check the clip of it if you really want to, but it went down basically exactly as we expected it to. So like it's very interesting because runes was as a protocol being developed in public for 7-8 months from September until April. Casey had the code public the entire time. So, when you had influencers kind of enter the scene in like February, March and start talking about DeFi is going to come from runes, there's going to be swaps and it's going to be better than BRC20. Like it was literally like all you have to do is spend 10 minutes looking at Casey's own like postings and you'll see none of this shit's going to happen. Like it literally was just loot, basically.
If you listen to Casey himself, right? Like you don't have to know any code. Like, yes, our team looked through all of the source code and it helped us inform our opinion about this stuff. But like we just listened to Casey. He never said any of this stuff was going to be possible. He said it's only for shit coins. It's only for gambling. The experience is not going to be very much different than BRC20's.
Only to inflate his ego. Go on.
Yeah, and so he was pretty transparent, in my opinion, about how runes was going to go down. I think maybe he let other people run the narrative for him. But again, that may be just him not wanting to get involved or whatever, right? But like, there were people who ran this narrative that like, I mean, I saw multiple projects raise $10+ million for runes DeFi projects that still to this day have never launched. It's like, we were ringing the alarm bells about this on Spaces and getting told, fuck you guys just fudders, blah, blah, blah. It's like, when is the truth FUD? When did that happen? Like, we're talking about objective reality here on what you can or can't do with runes. And if the guy who makes the protocol is saying I don't want to see DeFi. I don't want to see utility. This is just simply shitcoin gambling. And this is also a guy who is like not a shitcoiner either. So it's like if my dad was building a shitcoin protocol, like he doesn't know, or maybe he doesn't care about what does an actual shitcoiner want out of a shitcoin.
Or the guy just wanted attention. That's what he wanted. We saw Domo getting all the fucking love. Domo fucking exceeded him on social media. The guy clearly wants to be a fucking influencer, right? Doing podcasts. What developer anybody here knows has a fucking podcast who means business? The guy wants to get famous, bro. Okay.
I do think that Casey is like, I think he's really like an anarchist. That's the way that I was.
That's a good way.
He's not in this space to make money. No. He's in this space to kind of do fuck shit, you know? Like I view Runes as basically the biggest troll in crypto ever. Like that, like he literally just made ERC20 but his own version. And then the first token, the best part about it to me is that Casey has really stayed away from being like called a grifter. Like he pretty much has made no money on ordinals or runes. He hard coded the first rune token, what the fuck's it called? Uncommon Goods, and then basically made it worthless, right? Like it was a big troll. Like so I do respect him for like keeping, staying true to his beliefs and his bit. But I definitely think that runes are kind of
also.
It's like the debate, like when not to get political about it, but like people had all sorts of stuff to say about the right and the left before the first debate happened, and then everyone was kind of hit with reality.
I'll tell you what it is, okay? And I'm bringing this frame. It's like I respect Casey, of course, because he figured out ordinals, how to save assets on Bitcoin with the emergence of Taproot and combined with SegWit, right? I respect him for that. But if it wasn't for the first token standard on Bitcoin, ordinals would not be relevant. It would not even be successful, right? It got successful, like you guys already mentioned, when tokens came out, then interest came in, then SEX started listing it, then Binance. That wasn't for art. That wasn't for sub 10K. That wasn't for rare sats or anything. And that's what he was, to your point. Like he developed this standard or this ordinal theory thing based off of NFTs. So he's an NFT guy. And when you look at Casey at the very beginning, gentlemen, it's like, the guy was nowhere to be found. He was on his high horse thinking he's the shit, getting famous. It's almost like a super rich, like a how do I say this? Like a shadowy government behind the scenes of the government giving out instructions what to do, and the whole world got to take fucking injections now. And they're like, ha, because I said so. It's that feeling of that. That feeling of like satisfaction. I could tell people to do something and they'll do it. It's one of those.
Because it's his protocol, though. Like the weird part about ordinals is that it literally is his centralized code. The same goes for runes, So like, there's this expectation of the users that they're gonna have a say in how it works. Yeah. But Casey did not have to give that to them at all. Like it's his thing. Yeah.
Sure. But like to my point though, it's like okay, so now when tokens got all the attention. And he's not getting like, oh, where's like Casey? Oh, Casey, yeah, we know Casey is cool. And his fall, like this guy's following's blowing up. Out of fucking nowhere, this mofo comes on the ordinal show. I don't say ordinal revolution. The ordinal show talking about a new standard after being quiet for like fucking 6 months. And I'm like, whoa. And you're going on a show that aren't even representing tokens. They're representing Bugatti fucking collections, fucking me ladies coming over and all this gay shit that nobody gives a fuck about. And all of a sudden you talk about a new standard? Where did that come from? So I started asking all these questions, and then I'm led to believe like the guy wasn't here to really build something like what you're saying. He was here, anarchist, attention, whatever it is. It just didn't add up. You're quiet this whole time, then all of a sudden you show up with a new token standard. The first thing to come out of your mouth is a new token standard, bro. When you literally built an NFT structure,
Dude, he's a troller, man. Like, again, any other person in the crypto space would have all of the above characteristics and then also be trying to make money off of it. And kind of why he has been like, he's still clean. Like he hasn't grifted with his own project. He's just a fucking troll, dude. So I kind of love it personally.
well, that brings us to our next thing. Sorry, Chad, go ahead. You're going to say something.
Well, this is what sort of was our breaking point with how we were approaching building is like, okay, I do have respect for Casey. And again, like he made this NFT protocol and then people kind of hijacked it with these tokens and with BRC20s and his like beautiful ORD client database that was supposed to be for all this art. All of a sudden it's filled up with JSON inscriptions. Like
I know Danny was quick to buy his fucking collection. He did some fucking LGBTQT shit is what I heard. I don't know. I'm joking. Go ahead.
Yeah, so he had this again, it kind of got hijacked from him, and I think he was trying to take it back a little bit or like whatever, right?
Exactly.
But at the end of the day, our decision was fuck that shit, like not I don't hate Casey or anything, but if we're trying to build on Bitcoin, we can take some of the inspiration for the good parts of, in our opinion, of what he's made, and then make the thing that I think everyone wants, which is fully permissionless programmability. There's tokens, there's NFTs, there's full smart contract functionality, and build it from the ground up and say ordinals, that's over there. Opnet, this is the thing that I think everybody wants. And then again, like our design for this is there is no gas token, there is no like profit model for us. Like we're trying to take inspiration for what made ordinals really work. Like it's not like he was the first one to ever do NFTs on Bitcoin. He was just the first one to do it in this way that not only
was it Counterparty?
Counterparty did, but Counterparty had a token. So like again, Casey has, love him or hate him, he does make open source software that doesn't give him any money directly. So like he kind of started because Ordinals doesn't have this.
It definitely helps if you're getting some nice dog fucking airdrops. I'm just saying. Who knows? Who fucking knows? Which is our next topic.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, but that was sort of our inspiration for like, how do we design Opnet? It has to be this open source meta protocol that take Ord away, put Opnet instead, and now you have all of the functionality that you want instead of having to build layers and layers and layers off of Casey's stuff, which is not really meant to do any of this stuff. Build the thing from the ground up that allows you to do all this stuff that keeps the same sort of mentality of open source. There's no barrier to entry. You're just using Bitcoin for all this stuff. And so then also it allows for scale because, we're not scaling layer one. In fact, we're probably going to be clogging layer one to the maximum, but it's not clogging layer one to the maximum. Like this is the difference. I think a lot of people don't understand this. This is the difference between hardcore Bitcoiners hating ordinals and what we're doing. Hardcore Bitcoiners hate ordinals because yes, it clogs up the block space, but more importantly, it requires users to believe something about Bitcoin that's just inherently not true, right? There is no such thing as of ownership of on-chain data. Like you can put information to Bitcoin blocks, but you can't own it on-chain that doesn't exist.
Right.
So Casey's Ord client assigns you this off-chain ownership of on-chain data. This is like, Danny likes to say, this is like buying a star in the sky, right? I have like a star receipt and I own this star in the sky. Do I actually own it? No. If I can get someone to buy that star
it's like a Bitcoin ETF. You own the fucking paper. You don't own the Bitcoin.
Exactly. And so like, I think that bothers a lot of deep Bitcoin guys who are very religious about Bitcoin. And then the second thing is
that's also retarded. Sorry to butt in, but like that is retarded to get pissed off by that because at the end of the day, Bitcoin is supposed to be about users, and if the users decide that something is valid, that's the blockchain, baby. Like this is permissionless environment. It should be up to the people. So like there's this weird. Yeah, pissy offness between the maxis is very weird.
Bro, I would argue. Sorry, Chad, go ahead. Chad, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that importantly, the difference between something like ordinals, which again, like you have this, anyone can make an argument that NFTs inherently are either a scam or not, right? That's not really I enjoy some NFTs. I think some are bullshit, whatever. But like a lot of people do believe, whether they're outside of crypto or whether they're in crypto, that NFTs are just a total scam, right? Mm-hmm. So if these hardcore Bitcoiners who are obviously going to believe that about NFTs, if that's what's taking up all this block space, they're not going to be very happy with that. But take that out of the equation, they're never going to love that Bitcoin blocks are filled. But if you can provide them applications that actually give them utility for their Bitcoin, that like are common sense, something that everyone who holds Bitcoin would want, whether it's a small amount of yield or being able to lend your Bitcoin out in a trustless and custodialist way, or swap your Bitcoin for stable coins that are issued on chain, or like even the golden goose of having Tether issue Tether on Bitcoin, not on Ethereum. Like these are the things that Opnet can potentially provide the way towards. And so, we find a lot more acceptance of, even though they don't love the fact that there's going to be a bunch of new shit coins on Bitcoin, and they don't love the fact that Bitcoin blocks are probably going to be filled up with all these transactions. All these transactions are going to be high value, high utility transactions for people who hold Bitcoin. So it gives people who hold Bitcoin a lot of flexibility and options of, how do I want to use my Bitcoin? Do I want to lend it out? Do I want to stake it? Do I want to trade it for stables on chain with no KYC? Like these are the things that are really appealing to, I think, every user who holds Bitcoin. And then again, going back to runes, I think an understated part about runes is the overall crypto market, right? Is, let's just say it's, there's, hundreds of billions of dollars of liquidity in the overall crypto market. And in this Bitcoin space, there's a small niche in the crypto market that probably has maybe $500 million completely liquid, right? Like across all these Bitcoin assets that we're all trading, there's probably like $100 or $500 million liquid across all these assets completely. So there was a lot of interest, I think, from the overall crypto market in runes because of how they were being hyped up. Then they came to Bitcoin. The user experience was horrible.
Yep.
You couldn't do anything with these assets.
It's like
and
they came back to the same mess, other than the transfer inscription, but other standards introduced that too, atomicals, SRCs. So it's like, what really fucking changed? And back to this whole topic about Casey, and I love how Danny is like being on like saying it on both sides. Yeah, we could wreck him right now and say a bunch of shit, but he's saying I do appreciate him for certain things of open source and not collecting $1. But one could argue when they thought NFTs and all of these other things, rare sats, and like I actually like rare sats, by the way. I know a lot of people think it's a scam. I actually think if you're talking about collecting and you're collecting dumbass cartoon characters that some guy made up, that Satoshi came from Satoshi, it makes sense from the, the rarity and how hard it is to get and etc. So that narrative I actually liked, but it's like maybe one day they woke up and they realized when tokens was getting all of the fucking attention and there was they're actually losing viewers, bro, the ordinal show, because it was about tokens and they weren't talking about it as much. One could argue that they're like, yo, bro, what the fuck? We faded BRC20 tokens. We fucked up there, royally fucked up there. Let's just reinvent a new fucking standard. Let's make up for that, right? And then we'll do this airdrop shit. I think one last point. And with the airdrop, it's not like BRC20s, and I know not all of them do it like that, but you go on chain, right? With BRCs, you couldn't do airdrop. I mean, you probably could have, but it cost a lot of money. But what I mean, it was all on chain. So now I gotta trust the motherfucker.
Yeah.
And that's the problem.
Yeah. I mean, I think, like, again, I was pretty deep into the dev side of the BRC20 and Ordinal, like very, very, pre-runes, the freeze days. And kind of what happened is, like, when BRC20s came out, the Ordinal client at the time actually had a lot of bugs in it. And so for some portions of the Ord client were broken, namely the cursed inscriptions. Right?
Yes, I remember this, bro.
Yeah,
remember, we built a tool, right? So we relied on the Ord client. So I know exactly what you're talking about. Go on.
Yeah, so like from Casey's perspective, essentially, and I don't want to speak for him, but like essentially from the dev perspective of this thing, it's like you put out this very experimental, literally it's your standard. Like the Ord client is not this decentralized protocol for everyone to do whatever they want with. It's Casey's protocol, or it was, now it's Raf's as well. It was Casey's protocol that he's the controller of. When he clicks the push to GitHub button, that's the new thing that happens, right? Yeah. And so when Domo, and it wasn't even really Domo, Domo just like, started all of this by deploying Ordi. But when the BRC20 meta started to take off and a financial market was built on top of this, kind of broken NFT standard, it made Casey and the Ordinals team, they made their lives very, very difficult. Because now, they're to do any like dev work, the database size of what they were working with increased by like 10 to 20 times. I mean, before BRC20s, there was maybe 5 million inscriptions, maybe, and then when BRC20s came around, it jumped to like 50 million in a couple of weeks, maybe a couple of months. So it really like made it feel like basically suddenly Casey and Raf and the rest of the Ordinals team, their responsibility is to fix the client for the BRC20 people, when the BRC20 people very well could have just forked Ordinals and, made their own kind of thing. So it caused this like big amount of stress where the Ordinals team, they don't want to work for the BRC20s people, which is kind of why I see Casey leading it into making runes, basically to get everybody off of his shit, like get off of this Ordinal stuff, go use the tokens.
Okay, that's fair.
I mean, harkening back to a narrative that was surrounding CBRC20, like CBRC20 fixes this. It was referring to a number of things, but one of them was being the bloat of all of the BRC20 inscriptions. The CBRC20 inscriptions were way, because it was compressed. So you had
They were
way
filterable.
smaller
So
and
basically, you could run the ordinal client. We made a modified version of the ordinal client that only indexed CBRC stuff. So our database size, was maybe 5 gigabytes compared to BRC20, which was like 300 gigabytes. So the data structuring of this stuff on the back end is like a fucking nightmare, to be honest with you.
Right.
But yeah.
again, this is part of the reason why we had to start from scratch and say, how would we build this? Take Casey out of the picture. How would we build this if we were starting from complete zero to build the most functional protocol possible? That's really where Opnet was sort of born from.
Just before we leave the topic of Casey and all this, I remember in the earlier days of watching this, it was like last year, February of 2023, I saw his video. And it was that video talking about the serial numbers and how he discovered how to make NFTs, so to speak, on Bitcoin. And he was with his, with the girl there, I think it's his girlfriend or whatever. And why I'm led to believe he's all about fame, and nothing more, really, it's because, bro, it was like watching them talk, bro. It was like watching them have fucking pillow talk after they had sex or something, bro. It was so lovey-dovey, and I'm like, bro, I cannot fucking stand this. And then he's showing us, like, it's a long-ass video on how to do something. I forget what it was, sync in the blockchain or something. The fucking cats are like, oh, kitty. I'm like, brother. Like, I couldn't stand it, man. So there's so much things about him that was just kind of off. I even DM'd him before he got famous about something about a rare sats, right? I want to know if, like, we can make this available for the public, right? Because you needed a node. He just blocked me. So I just kind of felt like he was like a superficial kind of guy, you know what I mean, on his high horse. He always had like this attitude for whatever reason. But yeah, let's talk about dog, boys. Let's talk about dog. Go ahead.
Okay, definitely. Well, I was gonna just to wrap all that up. I would say that whatever his motivations are for doing what he does, he is. I think I would take. And not to push back on what you're saying right now, but like I would take someone.
No, it's okay, brother. Yeah, no, seriously, no beef, man. We're grown men. We don't have to agree on everything.
Oh yeah. Well, I would take someone whose main.
Danny is cracking up over there, eh? Go ahead.
I would take someone whose main pursuit is like just trying to make their mark on the world or whatever in pursuit of fame, let's just say, over someone who's like relentlessly grifting. Like if he said the first 10,000 ordinals or first 100,000 ordinals these are my ordinals and everyone needs to buy them or whatever. Or like if he had, I think he had every right to make a cool first token. I think that kind of honestly killed a little bit of momentum with runes to not make a good token as the first one. But like he's stuck to this. Yeah, whether you want to call it in pursuit of fame or maybe he's just like trying to make his mark on the Bitcoin world or whatever, right? Like whatever that ends up being, I think an important thing for everyone to remember is that he's not God. Like he's not the one who controls everything here, right? He put forth a really good idea. And I think that borrowing things from what he's done and keeping in mind that he's a unique individual who's like, he has his own motivations and his own beliefs and his own philosophy that isn't particularly always going to be in line with what the overall user likes. Like we're users, you're a user. Like we're people who trade crypto and have traded crypto for years in the market. Like we're not like coming from this artistic dev side. We're coming from I want to see, liquidity pools on Bitcoin. I want to see liquid on-chain trading. I want to see DeFi on Bitcoin. Like I don't care about Nev. I don't care about this stuff. Like I want to see a great user experience. Like if now now Danny and I have put our builder hats on, we can borrow the things that we like from Casey. And then again, the thing that I think we have just come across in the past however many months that we've been trying to build stuff that isn't related to Casey is people being like, Casey's just going to one day wake up and be like, I'm just going to wreck these guys. It's like, no, he's not. Exactly. He has no interest in doing that. It's not that he couldn't make some sort of improvement to runes. That's his protocol. Let's stop thinking that he's the only one who can make anything.
Exactly.
And let's start from zero.
Exactly.
Start from zero.
Exactly. But I would say this, imagine having an NFT geek create a token standard. What would the end result be? Let me tell you. I don't need to live through it to fucking tell you. I'll tell you before it happens, and sure enough it happened. How about this? And another thing that he did that I didn't appreciate. Who the fuck? This guy was shilling tickers. Imagine if Domo was shilling fucking BRC20 tickers, bro. That's just weird. Imagine Vitalik shilling fucking tickers on the ERC20. Where?
Just the difference there is that Domo probably made $10 million.
Domo did, yeah. Domo got some already. Domo got some already. I know. We could hey, don't talk about my boy like that. Then we got problems. I'm joking. No, it's like I'm joking. It's like yeah, he stole the idea. People were saying he heard it from somebody. I would say this, and I'm not even defending him. Like, we all have fucking ideas in our head, and we got a belly button too. But whoever fucking implements it or does some for it, I think they should get the credit. I mean, to a certain degree, at least. Let's talk about Dog Boys. Dog to the moon. Listen, if the moon is in the center of the earth, I guess they're right then, because they went to the fucking earth. So I don't know, bro. Again, my point. It's like when NFT geeks want to be token guys. This is what happened, and people will talk about the airdrop. The airdrop is fine. I even said this in my prediction. I was objectively correct today. And when you look at crypto, it's like this scoreboard. And when you look at that scoreboard, you are losing badly. And if people still want to beat me down for it, for being objectively correct, they lose credibility. I'll say that. And everything I said played out the way it did, right? The way I said. Now, I'm not talking about the airdrop. I said if you got that, take that fucking exit liquidity and run with it. But if you're buying into this shit, you might be in for a rude awakening. And lo and behold, 4.5 months or so later, it's a disaster. And we're talking about the token performance. I will say this on record right now. And again, why would I want to talk shit about something if I don't believe it's the truth? Because I lose credibility, I lose my rep. I'm not into that business, right? Even if it's unpopular, but I believe it's correct data based off of my research that will happen, I must stand up on that even if it's against the status quo. That's what I tell people. If you want to stick with the status quo and sink with the Titanic, be my guest. Go ahead. We've seen Bored Ape Yacht Club do this. We've seen a bunch of Hex community do this. All this bullshit. If you want to be the next one, go ahead. OXBT, go ahead. I don't give a fuck. We need people like you. I like coffee. I need someone to make my coffee for me with 2 creams. You know what I'm saying? It's fine. If you don't want to listen, that's your fucking business. And the reason why you must be correct in this game, boys, and I'm sure you guys know this, is because unfortunately, when you're wrong, you lose money in crypto. And when you lose money in crypto, it affects the quality of your fucking life. So why would you want to be wrong in crypto, right? That's a big, we need to understand that, right? Now, with Dog, I just feel like, if they want, like they're talking about crossing already and 1 billion. The whole thing with me is they're psyoping people and believing that over 1 billion is good when you launch at 300 million. Again, NFT geeks. And he has no skill. Where is Leonidas's 100x picks from the past? Where is his token fucking experience? What he's doing is just being a marketer and using his influence to bring something up, not skill. You're not using your skill, what's on the market, to say, oh, fuck, I like this project because X, Y, and Z, and risk your rep. You're taking a little pussy boy fucking way, using your big influence to pump something, and it was very fucking entertaining what you struggle fucking 3x, bro. It was very fucking entertaining. You couldn't even get past 3x with your fucking big ass influence. You know why? Because you don't know token economics. You know why? Because in your Twitter ID it says NFT at the back. Leonidas NFT. Not Leonidas token guy. Not Leonidas BTC. Leonidas motherfucking NFT. You're a fucking cartoon character nerd. You don't know how this game works, and it just showed. People are wrecked. I don't give a fuck. People will be like, yo, bro, well, I got the airdrop, bro. I'm good. You're still holding it? Okay, well, you could have sold for more. You're wrecked. You're wrecked in that regard, right? You want to sell at the best price. And lastly, before I let you guys talk, well, what about the people that bought it from y'all? I wonder, like if you're selling it, some motherfucker gotta be buying it. I would love to ask him. And by the way, this is no longer an opinion. I did a poll, and 65% of people are just wrecked. And I would imagine there's a lot of people who are wrecked, but they don't want to admit it. They're trying to put it into the no, so it outweighs the truth. And before you guys comment here, and I'd love to hear your take, whether you agree with me or not, I don't care. I just wanted to say that. Mattyverse had a super chat here forever. Sorry, brother. No friction onboarding on Fractal because it's built using Bitcoin Core and uses the same wallets, websites, and addresses. No other sidechain does this. Well said, Matty. Okay, boys. That was a mouthful. Sorry. Go ahead.
Hey, I loved it, bro. I loved it. I love the passion. Again, I think that the biggest thing that Dog Go to Moon highlighted was the limitations of the rune standard itself. You have one of the biggest influencers in the space. You have a community of tens of thousands of holders. You have all of the traditional playbook of a token that pumps like crazy, right? You have all of these ingredients together. But what you don't have is a functional standard to actually trade this stuff on.
Hey, Chad, you better be careful what you say, because Shizzy's in the chat and he's saying that builders are building on runes. I'm joking. Go ahead. But he is saying that. Shizzy's saying that right now.
Well, I mean, hey, There was a lot of projects who said they were going to launch day one of Runes.
There's your counter trade, by the way.
Yeah.
Whatever that guy's saying is there's your counter trade.
Yeah, that's your counterparty right there. I mean, again, like here's the deal. Like, how many projects said they were going to be building Runes protocols and raise a shit ton of money and all that stuff, and where are they? Gone. Nowhere to be found. They're either building somewhere else, or they're going to try and build using like a side chain thing that you deposit your runes into,
like track. Yeah,
either ICP or again like there's other protocols out there that are trying to like do their best to bring functionality to runes, but like why like you're trying to build an exit liquidity protocol basically to try and give exit liquidity to all these bag holders. And it's like, I mean, again, our approach is like start from zero, and then everyone is now early again, right? The same narrative that played out with runes, where everyone's hype around runes, was everyone who missed BRC 20 was so hype around runes because they were like, oh, here's our chance. It's just going to be like BRC 20 all over again, baby. But what they didn't factor in is that BRC 20's hype was something that is, in my opinion, something you can't recreate. You can't recreate that hype with the same type of technology.
You're never ever going to see, if your minted order is over 23,000x, you're never going to, you're just never going to see that again.
That's not going to happen with an NFT token like BRC 20 or runes. But like with smart contract functionality and all that stuff, you're going to see the first of everything. You're going to see first meme coins. You're going to see first DAO tokens. You're going to see first burn tokens. You're going to see first lending protocols and DeFi protocols and all this. There's going to be firsts for everything. And everyone will actually be able to be early again. And the user experience will make enough sense where users from Solana and Ethereum can come to Bitcoin and say, oh, I get it. It makes perfect sense to me. This works just like it does over here, except it's a little bit slower. It might be a little bit more expensive, but the multiples are there to make. And again, you sort of made this point about dog. Like the success of something is not so much how high does the market cap get. It's about the multiples that the investors can make it at any stage, stage. So okay, you buy a token at, this is why Uniswap and DEX style trading is so great. Because if I buy a token at $15,000 market cap and I sell it at $1 million market cap, I make a great multiple. And if I buy that same token at $1 million market cap and I sell it at $50 million market cap, I make a great multiple. And if I buy that same token at $100 million market cap and it gets to $2 billion market cap, I make a great multiple. And the whole way, it's liquid the entire way, right? So like, that's why it gives you a chance, no matter where you're at, to be buying with full capital efficiency, right? Like any buy that happens or any sell that happens, you're not selling directly on somebody else. Like the problem with runes, and again, like dog is like the most successful rune. So it's easy to highlight.
How is it the most successful, though? How is it the most successful?
Out of the runes tokens.
I'm not questioning you. I know. I'm not questioning you. I'm just saying, like, and I get it. Technically, it is because it's number one, right? In market cap. Right. But it's like it never grew there. It created pre-market whales, and it has this this fake pre-market cap. So when you launch, I was like, oh, we're here. What the fuck? You know what I mean? So
the big problem with it is that you buy a token on Ethereum at $900 million market cap or whatever, right? And then it goes to 500 mil. It doesn't take an insane amount to get it back up to that point, or you can at least get your money back whenever you want, right? You can always hit a sell button and you instantly sell. And then you could buy back at a different point in time. Maybe the narrative hits again and it goes 5 times higher. Like look what happened with Pepe. Pepe went to a couple bill, dropped all the way down to like 300 mil, then hit all-time highs after that. So like there was always spots where you can get in and get out whenever you wanted, whenever you needed to. The big problem with, again, it's really easy to rail on something like dog, but it has to do with runes themselves more than anything else. Is like getting to 900 mil is a feat in and of itself in terms of, because you have these walls of cells, because things are not trading in a totally liquid fashion. You're trading like NFTs. So like in order to pump all that up, you have to have way more buy volume than you would need. So like with all the buy volume on something like dog, if dog traded like a liquid token, like an actual normal token, it could have probably hit multiple. It could have hit multiple billions of dollars in market cap.
Yeah, it could have.
And because of the Uniswap X times Y equals K, that's pumponomics. So like its first run could have gone to multiple bill. And then its second runs, every time it dumps down and then comes back a little bit, like you have a way thicker wall of sells to try and get back up to where they got before. This is like the least type of efficient trading in crypto history.
Real question real question here, and I'm talking about what you just mentioned. Now, do you think there's room for corruption here, colluding with miners, having these guys like as a top 10 runes? As we know, hey, whoever got the first runes or the second, third, the top 10 is going to be valuable. They want to go for that. This is what I would say, right, with Dog, and why I think there's some collusion happening here. Now, remember when Runestone came out, Leonidas was like, oh my god, guys, we just have the largest block in Bitcoin history, Runestone, right? Basically saying, well, we just partnered with Marathon, and I told them if they could do this for us, and we'll help them out later on if they did it, right? And that marketing scheme, I get it, it's the narrative, the largest block, like, what technological advancement does that do? All that tells me is you have friends that are miners that can help your ass out. And then after that, they went from this notion of like, oh, fuck it, we're going to go take Dog. We're going, like, they told us that how there are going to be multiple airdrops, Dog, and then later on another one. And then he's like, you know what? Fuck it. We're going to try to be the first few runes to go live. And sure enough, they were number 3. The King Kong Monkey guys were number 1, whatever the fuck, Ping Pong, King Kong, Donkey Kong, whatever. And then we had a couple other, like, R-Second guys. So I'm like, that could never happen with BRCs. It's literally fair on-chain, you get it. I don't know how to pay a miner money to put me number 3 or number 2. And there was somebody who was watching a transaction from a miner on block 840K, and they were pointing out something. I don't know what he was saying, but he was saying there's some discrepancies there, to say the least, right?
Well,
so is that a possibility? Or am I off my rocker?
No, I mean, it basically is like the way that Bitcoin is designed is the miners basically have full control of any block. So, if the miners want to include something in a block, they can. If they want to exclude things in a block, they can also do that. If they want to reorg stuff, they can do that. Actually, miners can change the timestamp of a block for up to 2 hours after it happens. So, yeah, like basically what all of these games on Bitcoin are doing is it's like kind of incentivizing people to use Bitcoin in a way that it's not designed to be created. The weird part about ordinals and BRCs and runes specifically is that when people are like, you're basically gambling. It's brought like gambling on chain, right? Runes were such high in fees the very first day, not because there was any arbitrage where like, if you mint this token, you're going to be immediately able to sell it for, 10-time profit. It was literally off the hope that someone else will buy your shit from you for more than it costs for you to mint it, right? So like, not to just bring it back to Opnet, but like when you put smart contracts into this incentivization scenario of like, Bitcoin can do a bunch of shit that it's not really supposed to do, but because, just for example, right, you're talking about the big blocks. You could, in theory, take $200 billion and just make, one really expensive, one big transaction on Bitcoin every single block for maybe, 6 months and clog up the chain. But the financial incentive, the incentives don't align there. Like, you're just going to lose, you're not going to gain any money from doing that. So why would anybody do that? When you talk about this meta protocol stuff, you're basically allowing for like a market to incentivize people to do stuff, whether that's just putting data into an arbitrary, part of the transaction like ordinals and BRCs, or it's, you got to pay really high fees like the first couple of days of runes. When you bring a DEX or any kind of DeFi into this stuff, it no longer becomes gambling. It now becomes like literal financial arbitrage where, let's say there's 2 liquidity pools that exist, right? You have a Moto and Bitcoin pool, and then you have, we'll just say Dog Goes to Moon and Bitcoin pool, and then you also have a Dog Goes to Moon and Moto pool, right? When somebody swaps on the Dog Go to Moon Bitcoin pool, there now is a different price relation for that dog token to the Moto and Dog Go to Moon pool, right? These are 2 different types of pools with 2 different prices, but it's the same tokens trading. So now there becomes an arbitrage opportunity where you are financially incentivized to make a high fee transaction with arbitrary data to buy from one pool and immediately sell it into the other pool so you can make that free money. So it's going to like kind of expose all of these issues that the Bitcoin blockchain has that haven't been, I mean, personally, I feel like the token Bitcoin and the blockchain Bitcoin are two completely different like communities of people, two different types of investors. And so the Bitcoin token devs and holders and users, they're all on the same page of like, let's use it, let's play games, let's do NFTs, let's do tokens. And then the blockchain devs are being very resistant. And I think the blockchain devs are just like going to lose that game long term, because like you have RBF sniping, you have total control of the mempool, you have reorg, you have all these different things that like really fuck up a user experience, but it's good for the miners, and that's really been the focus of Bitcoin for 15 years. But now the tides are shifting. Yeah,
exactly. I've been listening and reading. I got the audiobook and the book of Roger Ver hijacking Bitcoin. He said the same thing.
I spoke it as well. Yeah,
bro, it's fucking incredible. Bitcoin
it's
users
crazy,
from the beginning. The vision of Satoshi is the complete opposite of what it is today. And he has the references. He's talked about the big blockers, the miners, Bitcoin Core, how they did this collaboration of this cohesive centralization of propaganda on social media. And yeah, you see that today too.
You can go down a fucking rabbit hole with that shit. Like,
bro, this has been the longest interview I've done since I've been on YouTube for 7 years, but it's going really well. No, it's free flowing. It's just natural. We do have another super chat from Matty Verse. Thank you so much. He says, how the smart contract function sending Bitcoin to Addies on Opnet. I guess he's asking how that would work. I don't know. How the SC function sending BTC to Addies. Oh, okay, yeah. How does Bitcoin interact with the smart contracts, like the actual Bitcoin BTC?
Okay, so basically it's the same concept of like the SAT tracking for ordinals, but instead of this SAT kind of relationship to like your data is linked to this SAT, we actually use TapScript. Basically, when you deploy a smart contract, in the TapScript code, you generate the same way. Okay, have you ever noticed that when you make an ordinal, you literally send Bitcoin to a new address, and then that address sends the ordinal back to you, right? That's like the grounds of ordinals is you're creating a TapScript or Taproot address, and then that Taproot address has a script, and you don't have access to the private key of this address. It just kind of exists. And then it sends that script back to you, which is normally in the form of an ordinal. So in our case, we do the same kind of situation where we generate an address based on the code of your smart contract. But that address, it has what's called a no spend condition. So basically the SegWit version of that address, when you have a private key, you have a legacy, you have a SegWit, you have a nested SegWit, and you have a Taproot address. And so the Taproot address is what you like generate, but the SegWit version of that is what you actually interact with. And it has this no spend condition that basically, like, if I want to deploy Chad token, right? And I want to add Chad token, I want to send Chad token to you, Francis. I am not actually going to send you any Bitcoin, like normally with an ordinal, I'm going to send you actual Bitcoin. Yeah. In this case, I send my smart contract interaction to the contract address of Chad token. And then the smart contract, based on the data of what you're putting in that transaction, as long as that lines up on the indexer side, your address will now have those tokens, and it can see that that address X is basically like a point of reference for interactions with that thing. So amazing. It's like it's more familiar to like how Ethereum works, where you have a contract address for all your smart contracts, all your tokens have addresses. This also means that you can deploy the same name of a token as many times as you want to, because and that's just
like on Ethereum and these other chains, you can do it. Just have the smart contract address, and to differentiate them. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
roger that. J25 Casey has made millions on speaking engagements and BTC washing through the Ordinals Foundation. That's what he says there. We also have, I saw something else.
Crazy accusation you throw out there.
Yeah, I know. We'll leave it at that. And then we talk about here, okay, I want your take on this. A lot of people complain about transfer inscriptions. I get it. On our tool, sathunter.com, we actually did it in a sense where it's a direct transfer, where you don't have to, create the transfer inscription, wait for it to arrive after 15 minutes, whatever, then send out the token balance. We actually chain it with the token balance in the same block. So we remove that issue because I agree that is very painful at times, right? It could be very painful, especially when things are slow on mainnet. But what do you think about the chopping up of UTXOs? It's almost similar, where it's an unnecessary step involved to get to the next endpoint or destination, right? So it's very similar like that. or not?
Yes,
Maybe
so-
not as bad. I don't know.
Opnet is an account-based meta protocol. So like,
No,
you can
runes.
look at
I mean runes. Sorry, runes. Like how runes split up UTXOs.
Well,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
again, unlike any other token standard in how tokens work in and any other blockchain in history, pretty much. BRC20s and runes are in the same way. I mean, runes specifically, let's just say. You're like trading around little pieces of Bitcoin. ERC20 tokens don't work like that. ERC20 tokens are not like you're chopping up little pieces of Ethereum and sending them around to people, because tokens on every other network are virtual tokens. They're smart contract based, and these virtual assets, and that's what allows them to have full programmability, full functionality, right? Like you're able to now have these tokens live in smart contracts and interact in this totally programmable way. The reason why on the most basic level, there's a lot of other reasons, but on the most basic level, a lot of the reasons why we have these limitations with the current Bitcoin assets is because of this UTXO based model where every token has tied to a tiny little piece of Bitcoin. It fundamentally doesn't make sense if you're trying to have anything besides tokens that can't do anything.
Think about a liquidity pool, right? Like if you are going to have a liquidity pool on Ethereum, Uniswap doesn't like have access to all of the liquidity pools. There's no button Uniswap can press that drains all the liquidity pool. Like it's a smart contract address, and the only things that can happen on that address, the custody of those assets, are dependent on the code of that smart contract, right? So if your token on Bitcoin, like BRC20s or runes, if they have to be stored on a Bitcoin address, like physically to move around, it depends on like the private key of that address, and it's not virtual. How are you going to have a liquidity pool when there's no smart contracts on Bitcoin? Like if I want to send, I'm going to use OrdiSwap as an example, right? Because they kind of scammed everybody basically. And so OrdiSwap, you basically sent them your tokens, and then centrally on their end, they like mimicked a liquidity pool, a trading experience, etc. But literally OrdiSwap, I think this was like 6 or 7 months ago now, but they drained all of their liquidity pools and then sold the tokens on an open exchange. So something like DotSwap actually does this very, very well, where DotSwap has, they're very transparent about the multi-sig signers. Nobody's ever had any problems with DotSwap. So it works. It just isn't like a liquidity pool experience on Ethereum where, you're totally custodyless basically.
And they have to list tokens. I mean, they have to list these tokens, which again, like, okay, from a tech perspective, people who want to provide liquidity, it's not a very attractive place for them to provide liquidity. But and simply speaking on the user experience, like if I'm going to launch a token and I want it to be successful today, tomorrow, you can go onto Uniswap, you can go to Ethereum, you can go to Solana, you can make a token out of nowhere, pair it with a little bit of ETH or Solana, and then go to sleep. And then the next day, your token could be multiple millions of dollars in market cap, right? Because it's instantly liquid, instant DEX trading. There's no mints, there's no gas mints or any of this stuff. You don't even get listed on a SEX or a DEX.
The reason why I said that how Dog, why I did this is because it's just right in your face, right? How Dog cannot perform too well from a token performance standpoint or a multiplier, like how you guys defined it, is because of the NFT structure. It's because of the launching at a high market cap. It's because of, all of these things that just doesn't sit well for token success, and, I mean, the liquidity pools is very important, and all these other things too, but I feel like they missed the fucking mark with that big time, and they just didn't understand, like, they genuinely didn't understand that. They just thought, okay, we could do this. And everyone's like, oh, well, look at Shiba Inu, and I'm like, you are comparing it. The circumstances on token economics are something completely different. Those grew organically from tiny pools, meaning what? As it grows, right? You can only buy $100 maybe dollars or $200. You can't have fucking $7,000 worth already at your disposal, and then you got to deal with pre-market whales too, dumping. So all of these things that was against it, it just told me I just don't see this thing doing anything more than a 5x. Is what I said.
Right.
I mean,
that's a
3.5x.
That's a great call. That was a great call because, again, like here's the thing, and this is what I think Dog on the Moon highlights also, and just in general, what we've been sort of harping on for a very long time is the barrier to entry for launching a successful project in the Bitcoin space pre-Opnet is unimmeasurably high, right?
Yes.
Think of the most successful projects that have been actually liquid at high market caps, and there's only maybe five to 10 projects. Most of them were BRC20s, but the barrier to entry for launching these projects is massive. So unless you have the reach of someone like Leonidas, or you have the reach of Unisat with the pizza airdrop token, and you have $1.5 million to spend on distributing that, or you have the reach of Leonidas to raise, multiple six figures to be able to distribute these tokens, you can't. If you're the average user, you have no shot at launching a successful project on Bitcoin, because let's just say you have a great idea. Okay, you do a mint, and then the mint mints out, and there was $3 million worth of buys when people were minting, but what's everyone's cost basis still? What's the value of their tokens? Zero still. There's no way to sell it. So now you have this like PvP environment where it's like anyone who buys a token is also getting dumped on while they're buying it. Like the whole point, the whole beauty of like something like Sheeb is there was no giant influencer push. It was this, enigmatic figure, and it was this organic community that formed, and they were able to just all say, we're all going to hold it, and everyone who buys it is going to, move the price up and up and up, right? Versus anyone who buys a token with runes or BRC20s is also getting sold on as well. So like there is no like everyone can come together and collectively hold, because there is not like a liquidity pool of tokens where people can just buy from and the supply squeezes, right? Exactly. It's like we're talking about basic capital efficiency here. So like this is partially the reason why we've had this nonstop mission from day one to build a DEX, because it's like once you have that, which still hasn't been accomplished on Bitcoin, once you have that, everything changes for the entire market. But it kind of led us to this spot where we were like, okay, we've got the DEX built into the indexer side. We have to make this an environment where not only a DEX can thrive, but we can actually capture some of the actual Bitcoin liquidity and allow for lending and ohm forks and everything, liquid NFT markets, NFTs with royalties, you name it that's on Ethereum, you can now do it with Opnet without even, for all the people who hate Danny and I for whatever reason, right? Though you think that Danny talked too much shit on Twitter or something like that, like, or you are misinformed about what we've done in the past in terms of like taking over a project and saving the community, or trying to innovate on Bitcoin and trying to take a different approach, even though we've been pretty transparent. Whatever, you don't like us for whatever reason, you don't have to touch us. You don't have to do anything to be able to build great applications on Bitcoin using Opnet. That's sort of the most important thing, is that no matter what you think about Danny, what you think about me, what you think about any of this stuff, don't fade the ability to be able to build something that creates value for yourself on Bitcoin. Because this is where we're at. Like, this is where everyone's bullish on, is Bitcoin and the Bitcoin ecosystem. And if you're going to let some sort of like, oh, I didn't like what Danny said on Twitter, stop you from either making money or building a great application, then you're letting, random stuff blind you from what the actual future of this stuff is, because it's like they're letting themselves get in the way. Exactly. And look, we're not like, we've been guilty of the same thing, right? Like we were, Danny more than myself, but we were both pretty big haters on BRC20 early on, because we thought there could be a more efficient way to do it. There could be a better way to do all this stuff before we even really truly understood the tech behind it. And so we let ourselves miss out on a bunch of 1000x opportunities with BRC20 because we were, we thought things could be done better or whatever. We didn't like how whatever your own personal opinion of this stuff is. But the way Opnet is built is that there is no Opnet token. There's nothing. If you build an application on Opnet and you make a bunch of money, there is literally no guarantee that we make any money off of that. And that's the environment that needs to exist for this really to like take off, right? Like Vitalik doesn't make $1 off of every single meme coin that launches. He doesn't make $1 off of every single application that launches.
Even though Iggy Azalea might say different. She might say that he gets all the gas fees.
Right. But again, that's sort of the environment that needs to happen. And then even further than that, like what's the token for Opnet? The token is Bitcoin, baby. And so
it inevitably benefits the Bitcoin holders more than anybody else. Like, we have our own application, which is a DEX, that there's no edge that we have with MotoSwap using Opnet. We literally just used Opnet to build MotoSwap. There's no edge that we have. We're on the same playing field as every single other person out
Anyone
there.
can fork it. Like, it's literally, it's a smart contract. So like, if we put out MotoSwap and it's really good, but there's things people want to change about it that we, whatever, don't want to change. Like, literally anyone in the entire world can fork our code and deploy it themselves and run it themselves. So like that, yeah, I mean, just like have fun staying poor if you want to,
Exactly. Okay, guys, look, let's quit beating a dead dog. I mean, a dead horse. And let's move on. Let's move on over to something a little bit more spicy. Sorry, we have a $20 super chat from Time. Very kind of off topic here, but I have to read it. Can AI make real-time programming a moment-to-moment modified on command gaming? I'm not the AI
Sounds like
guy.
that's a question for ChatGPT, to be honest.
I was going to say, just put that into ChatGPT, bro. You know what I mean? And you'll get your answer, right? I really don't know how to honestly answer that for you. Maybe.
What isn't possible with AI?
Whatever ChatGPT says. I don't know. I'll say this, though, guys. It's about to get, I think, a little bit feisty up in here. We're talking about tap protocol now. Okay, so just full context here. Full disclosure in a sense. There may be some tap people here. It is what it is. Don't censor yourself. I'm not ever going to censor myself. It's literally called The Uncensored Show, and I mean that. I just feel as though we, as a community here in the same space, come together, crossing paths. We're not going to agree on every single thing, but I think that we're grown men, and that doesn't mean we're enemies with each other just because we disagree. This is what I don't get. I think if you feel the need to be someone's enemy because you got a couple of different, takes on something that may conflict with yours, then you're immature. I think you're immature then. You're a fucking hormonal little kid, right?
Based as fuck.
Right. So let's do it like this. Tap protocol, and I'll start it off first. So when we built Shint, the first utility token for Bitcoin, and it is, right? It's not no crazy groundbreaking tech. We just felt as though we want to give value to users, and we want to create something that is valuable. And our slogan is where value meets utility in every inscription. And in the early days of BRC20s, everybody was memeing it out, and that's fine. There was a couple utility guys out there like the Council doing a launchpad. I guess now this Oshi thing and whatever else out there. Track was one of them, and even Ghosty came out like in the end. And in the earlier days, though, if we keep it there now, we want to build this thing where people didn't have to use their Bitcoin all the time to inscribe on the next big thing. And like what you guys were saying in the earlier days, the fucking org client was fucking buggy, bro. There's a lot of issues happening and shit. So it was a challenge from that standpoint alone to do this. And lo and behold, we actually came through and we delivered that where now you could save your Bitcoin, you hold the Shint thing. Not only when you pay with it, it's not going to be the same cost as Bitcoin. It's going to give you a 60% discount. And guys, we actually delivered that utility. And when I look back in retrospect, it's like all these utility guys, arguably maybe up to this day, still it really didn't deliver. And I'll tell you something, man. There's a lot of things I'm proud of in my life, like my first kid, my daughter, and all these achievements I've done, become independent over time. Always like have a chip on my shoulder. This has to be ranked right on top of the list because it wasn't easy, bro. And I know like once you do it, people don't give a fuck, and like I get it, but it wasn't all that easy. And it's nothing groundbreaking. It's not a fucking block. It's not a meta protocol. It's not what you guys are doing. But at the time, in those fucking days, bro, it was the best thing to offer, and it really gave value to the end user. Fast forward, when we're about to go live, I'm marketing Shint, and people say, why are you marketing your own thing? Because I don't feel the need to fucking go contact big influencers to do it for me. If I believe in my own shit, I know I could say it the best. I'm going to market that shit, So I started doing that. I actually got trending. I'll show you guys the video. Who cares? And then I went to Unisat. We were like the number one traded token for a period of time. And don't get me wrong, BRCs wasn't as active at the time, right? Whatever. But we're still number one. And I looked at what was below us, or what was just ahead of us, and lo and behold, it was Track and it was Ghosty. And this is where I start to be outspoken of, okay, well, what's their use case exactly? I've obviously known of Track, decentralized index or what have you. And I'm like, well, what the fuck? There's no real use case out there other than us. Now, what I want to educate people on was Ghostly is amazing what they could do. I really thought it was at the time. this way to actually get other cryptos or whatever it is, stablecoin through this mechanism that they built, bridging or whatever the fuck. I think it's somewhat centralized or it's a lot centralized, whatever. But it's still good to know you have that option other than going to fucking marketplace structures and all these things. I know it was long, whatever, but that has nothing to do with the token. So I'm like trying to educate people. The technology and the token are two different things, and the token is not attached to that. What are you guys buying up? And then when I spoke to the track guys, because they want to partner with me, and again, I do like SMB. SMB, like, he's a good guy. He really is. He really is. I just, he got caught up for track tap, whatever. He has his reasons. I have my reasons. As I say, I don't care if you're into that. It's like a Muslim guy and a Hindu guy. Am I going to hate them because we don't have the same fucking religion? No, I don't care. Right? So we still talk and shit every now and then, and lo and behold, you're like, I'm like, bro. So they want to partner, and I'm like, look, I could give you guys a real use case here with Track. We could use it as a form of payment and reward your community members for this, right? I think they'll like that. It's a use case, and they got so personal. It was like a developer guy, like, wait, why do you think we have no use case? I said, oh fuck, sorry, what is it then? Like, I do apologize if I'm wrong. What is it? And they're like, oh, well, right now, we're targeting like corporations, institutions. They're going to run our validators, all this stuff. I'm like, how many corporations own Track? It's people that owns a token that got you your name. This is why you have the name. And from then moving forward, I realized like, okay, they didn't really care about making this a real utility. So then it kind of like, added more fuel to the fire. I started being more vocal about it, got a lot of shit from people coming, and still to this day, I think you could use Track to buy it, the validator. I was asking Shizzy the other day, okay, well, that's not really a use case. Could I operate this validator, though? Do people have it? And apparently, no. So even to this day, when you look at the original BRCs, I was supposed to be utility. We're the only fucking one that did. Unless there's some, I think there's maybe that game, some game or something, but we're talking about high-frequency utility you could use any day of the week, any second of the day. Like, to build a game, bro, you're going to get sick of that game after the fucking 10th time playing it. I'm just saying. You know what I mean? So that's where I came with Track and Tap. And now they came out with this thing where it's like, again, and if it's real, that's great. That's fine. This, they're marketing it as, ground, breakthrough discovery. They were digging in the ground trying to find rare sats, but they found smart contracts in Bitcoin instead. So that's what they're saying there. And I'd love to hear your take on that. You guys are, one could argue it's a competitor thing. I don't know, maybe not. You guys can comment on this. So this is where I come with Track and my history with Tap and all these things. And again, time tells everything. And I think I'm still holding true to that. And I get a lot of shit from people before, which I don't give a fuck about. The game is not about joining the biggest cap. The game is about trying to foresee what is going to happen in the market. Whether that's against a big cap or for them or for a minority cap, whatever. And I think I do that pretty well, better than most. And, people don't like to hear it. But again, later down the line, we'll see. Look at Dog. Shit show. Look at fucking Runes. Shit show. Tap. Where's the use case still? I don't know, bro. Again, unless I'm not spending time on them. Maybe this, what I'm speaking about here, is how it was 3 months ago, and maybe today there's some new shit. But this is where this all stems from, I think, and that's my take. I think Danny looks like he wants to fucking get it out.
Yeah, bro. The track and tap and pipe and whatever shit.
DMT.
Yeah, DMT and Unify and all the shit. Like it's just like Benny is a guy. He's the founder of Track. The issue that I had with them originally was Track, when it minted out, was being basically marketed as like, this is going to be Chainlink for Bitcoin meta protocol stuff. So you're going to be able to use the Tap token or Track token at the time to like run some kind of validator, and then you'll gain fees in terms of Track. This is like the original idea. And that didn't make any sense to me, because how the hell are you going to pay people more Track when Track is a fully minted, free mint BRC20 token? Like the narrative and what actually existed as an asset just wasn't really lining up for me, especially in terms of tokenomics. So I started. This was like a year and a half ago. The space was very, very early, and I started just ask questions about it. Yeah. And those questions were met with a lot of hostility. Like the number one thing I think about the Track people and Tap people is they're very angry mob of people when you don't just kind of go along with whatever they're saying. It's like a cult basically, and they were one of the first cults, but it really got weird because they're very culty with this guy Benny. And Benny, I mean, he's like a fully, doxed individual. Everybody, he's shown his face. People know his real name and everything. But he basically has like been a part of. He's founded multiple projects in the last bull market, and he's even reused the logo for Track and Tap with these old projects. The unicorn logo. He used literally the entire thing last cycle, and he launched a token and a product called UNIFTY, which had 4 different tokens that was a part of it. It was going to be metaverse. It was going to be NFT. It went to $250 million market cap. And then Benny, the story that is publicly available at least is that he sold his equity in the company and then just silently left, and the token literally went to zero. I mean, like you can pull the chart up yourself. It's called UNIFTY. And so I don't really like these guys, because of this cult mindset where you're not allowed to question anything. Like literally you can't go into their Discord or Telegram and ask them anything without them freaking the fuck out.
Bro, listen, I know you guys aren't big proponents of this, but with Merlin Chain, I actually respect Jeff a lot. I think what he did was risky, holding all those assets. Sure, it wasn't decentralized. I get it. We could talk about all these things, but having the balls,
he could have brought it at any time, and he didn't.
Bro, to have the balls to deploy, everybody's talking about a layer 2. This guy, you know what? It wasn't the smoothest with the whole Polygon upgrade too on these things, but bro, the guy actually fucking press deployed, hold all those assets, what have you. But to my point, Benny's saying it's a scam. He's going to take your money. He's going to exit. And that's kind of like upset me too, because I've already had dealings with them, what I just explained to you guys. Then that came about, and I wanted to flatten that out. So he was wrong with his assessment there too. But I also felt as though he felt like market share was being taken away from him, because Tap was being spoken of.
To get on that exact note, where it kind of hit the point of contention with Moto and these track people is pre the launch of CBRC 20. There was like a 2-month period where I had basically community takeovered Oshi into Moto, but we hadn't made the Moto token yet. Like it was still just Oshi. And so the track people really jumped on that as an opportunity to like call me out basically and say I'm a scammer because this token went to zero and yada, yada, yada. And so they for 2 months, it was very difficult to like have any kind of recognition in the space or help, because this like mob of people were basically just calling us scammers. And so we put out CBRC 20 stealth mode. We didn't take credit for CBRC 20 for the first 2.5 weeks that it was out. It was just like an anonymous person. We made a new Twitter account and everything. And the track people really liked CBRC 20 because they didn't know it was us, right? So they really liked it. They were all free minting the board token. Some of them even,
a lot of them made a lot of money off of that.
A lot of them made a lot of money off it. And then they even asked Benny to build an indexer for CBRC 20 under Tap and Track. And he was like, yeah, this is great. This is an awesome protocol. I'm looking at the docs. This looks great. He had nothing but good things to say. And then we claimed it as being us, and he lost his fucking mind. I mean, he started accusing me of having like hundreds of Twitter accounts. He like literally lost his shit.
So
he had to leave
funny,
Twitter.
bro.
It was insane. And so his community, like, I mean, if you remember back in November, December, Track was the shit. Their token pumped a shit ton. And so I think it like really kind of
$15 million.
Yeah.
This was around the time they raised all that money.
Yeah.
And so I think that this like it kind of showed the narcissism of Benny and him being like a cult leader, where he was totally down for something and said it was good until he found out it was by somebody he didn't like. Exactly. He started accusing us of stealing his code. Like it was insane, bro.
That's ridiculous. Just before Chad jumps in here, I'll say that how, he's definitely felt threatened and all these things, and he doesn't like to see other things coexisting, I guess, right? It's competition. But yeah, Track and the whole decentralized indexer, I don't even know if that's even possible. But Chad, go ahead. I actually lost my train of thought there, but go on.
Well, my perspective on this is that I think that it's very bad faith to, instead of, like if you don't like someone or you don't like the tech or whatever, I think that shit talking and discourse about what's good and what's bad, especially on a technical side, is something that should be widely encouraged in this space and is pretty widely discouraged, right? Mm-hmm. But simultaneously, the track community specifically, certain members, not all, certain members, their go-to, especially because a lot of them are not technical, so they don't really know even how their own thing works, is just to immediately jump to calling people scammers when they don't understand stuff. Like
Yep.
they don't understand anything. And if anyone is trying to question what they're doing, or if anyone's trying to propose a different solution or whatever, again, the number one people who are like reply guying to everything are track people that are calling, Danny or myself scammers. When again, look at the track record. Moto right now is higher than the track token, right? And we haven't like promised, we haven't had to put out fucking 30 different tokens and stuff. So okay, going back to track though, I think so in that, right, like we're talking all this personality stuff. I'm just saying right now that we should actually talk about the tech and compare this stuff and not just jump to calling people scammers. Calling someone a scammer without any proof or evidence or whatever, if you think that it's just the weakest type of FUD possible, or you're gonna quote some random shit that you have no idea about and use that to call
unfalsifiable claims. You can't back it up with anything other than just word.
Exactly. So let's just strictly speak on the tech here, right?
Sure.
Track has the issue of being multiple layers deep off the ORD client. So there's idea of decentralized indexing is only relevant when you're indexing the ORD client, right? The ORD clients themselves don't need decentralized indexing. The ORD clients are somewhat decentralized indexers, right? The problem is when you're building a meta protocol, like something like Track or Tap, or I guess it's Tap and not Track. It's hard to keep track of everything, but it's creating a problem based off the underlying tech stack and then selling the solution. So that is, in my opinion, I think that's like the part of Tap that I guess just sort of rubs me the wrong way. And now, here's the thing. I'm not going to be sitting here and saying that we've been trying to experiment in the space and we've made some missteps or taken some approaches that we thought were right and had to step back and make different approaches. So I'm not going to sit back and say that Tap's pivots that they've made to whatever narrative that they're running with now are all in bad faith. I don't think that's the case. They obviously are funded. They obviously have a team. They obviously have a good community. Again, I like the guys from the Block Runner as well. I think that the DMT concept is very interesting. So there's a lot of positive stuff I have to say about this, by the way. So I don't want to make it seem like I'm just railing on this stuff. But like, there's just a few things that I have questions about, including one, they're trying to say that they're doing Bitcoin smart contracts, but they're running it through ICP, which isn't Bitcoin. So like, that in and of itself is not a Bitcoin layer 1 smart contract. You're using a layer 2 or a sidechain to do that stuff. Again, like there are other products in the market that are trying to do similar things, right? Like, so again, I don't think that the Tap standard is going to be dead in the water. I think that they have a strong community. They have in-community builders. I think that the narratives they spin are a little insane, like Chainlink of Bitcoin. Like, if you think that Track or Tap is the Chainlink of Bitcoin, you have no idea what Chainlink is. You don't know what an oracle is. You have no idea how Chainlink works, because it's literally like it's so bizarre and insane. It's like saying, I don't even know what a good analogy is for this, because it's so bizarre to say that. Like, an oracle solution has nothing to do with Track or Tap or decentralized indexing or any of that stuff. So like, that's an insane narrative. And we get people all the time who like quote Benny's nonsense that he'll like say. He'll be like, ooh, he'll just say some total nonsense. He'll just say UTXO and then a random sentence that makes no sense, and then it will get someone asking a question. It's like, dude, like,
you know what it is though? You know what it is, guys? It's like what people who don't know much about the tech, and they're just these normies, they'll just consume it, digest it, repeat it, right? So like what you're saying, all these things that don't make sense, right? And I just would love to know. I would love to know, where did Benny get this reputation from? I think all the things people are talking about is assertions and assumptions of what he could do. But I don't even feel as though there's any like point of frame of reference to say that he's accomplished something.
He was very early in the realm of. He was basically like one of the first indie indexer developers. Is essentially how it went down. Right. So basically, when BRC20 launched, there's like 2 points where BRC20 actually was like launched essentially into production. There was when Domo hit the deploy button on Ordi, right? But then there was also the moment where Unisat made the actual indexer, and then these tokens became tradable and kind of traceable. And so it was kind of very scarce, the amount of devs that understood. It's not really that complex of a task to build these additional indexers on top of Ordinals. Ordinals does a lot of the bulk work in terms of like, tracking the blockchain data. Like you're just building on top of Ordinals. And so Benny was one of the early members, like early devs in the Ordinal community that made his own indexer. I believe the first one was for bitmaps. And so he made the track, put the track token up. Basically, I mean, BRC20 tokens pretty much across the board. They don't really, with the exception of Shint. I'm going to exclude you from that. Because I don't know.
It's okay.
But with most BRC20 tokens, they act as like almost like a stock. Like you don't really get any dividend. When you buy one Apple stock, you're investing in the idea of Apple. Like you're not going to get any say in how it's run or get any profits or anything like that, right? So free minted BRC20 tokens have the same concept where like you're buying into this thing because it represents an idea most of the time. And so track token has they found a really tight niche in representing the idea of like DeFi. They called it OrdFi, right? There was this OrdFi whole meta that they did before. And then it just didn't really hit. So like, again, we've been talking about this for almost 2 hours now, but like smart contracts built on top of NFTs, like the Ordinal client, it's going to be shitty. Like it's not going to feel like Ethereum. There's going to be compromises every step of the way. And so when you're like, I think they had a lot of hype because again, they represented this idea. They put out a couple cool things. They had a decent rep for themselves. But now that it's it's like the worst thing for an AI blockchain token is actually having a product, right? Like the most bullish part of this is just an idea you're raising.
Exactly.
So
that's what I told him. I'm like, look, if you're gonna like with Ghostly, I was just saying this. I was like, look, this was back in the day. I was just like, hey, look, if you guys are gonna. The thing about developers is they know how to develop, but when they come with a utility, it's like building a car without the steering wheel. They just don't really know how to bring those two things together. They're great at building something, sure, but when it comes to the utility, they fucking suck. They find a very hard time coming up with that shit.
Yeah. It's difficult. Like, okay, we are fundamentally representing a community that is a utility-based token for our own application, which is Moto Swap, right? This is kind of how we've been able to bootstrap. Everything that we've done has been bootstrapped from the Moto community, which is like a community of true believers who we're extremely candid and honest with, who know us extremely well, know our track record, and believe in us fully, right? Even though we're fucking goofballs, even though we talk shit, even though all this stuff is happening, they believe in us and have a lot of faith in us based off of our honesty and transparency in our actual actions and what we've done and how we're able to focus on educating our community on everything that we know and we learn. We don't hide anything from the community, and we're super candid and honest with everybody. And so the Moto token fundamentally is you stake the token and you get the fees from the swap, right? That's how the Moto token works. That has sort of always been our position, and everyone is just more so bullish within how we've built our community, which can be cult-like. We built our community on the basis of education and honesty and community, because we've all kind of been through this position of like a lot of the people who got rugged on Oshi are still the same people who are in our community now, even though they could have sold for 100x at almost any point in time, or a 50 or 60x or whatever off the bottom. A lot of them, most of them are honestly still active in the community on a day-to-day basis because they believe in where we're trying to go, and so we're not selling them lies and stuff. And like, I know to some people who might be completely outside of our community or outside of stuff, it's like, oh, here are these guys, they pop up, they popped up with CBRC20 and said this was a great fix, and now they're popping up with a new thing. Well, we didn't make any money off of CBRC20. So there's no place that we grifted on that, and we just tried our best. And again, if you were paying attention or you were active in our community, which I don't blame you for not being, but like we were honest every step of the way on how things are going to evolve with it. And it's not like we're leaving that behind. But for something like Ghosty, for example, I think this is, a problem that overarches the entire track and tap ecosystem, which I don't think is a problem that could be forever. Again, I'm not so bearish on what the future of that holds, but like Ghosty, for example, right?
Yeah.
Fundamentally, they're nothing to do with Uniswap on Bitcoin. Their experience of the back end is not Uniswap. The front end is not Uniswap. None of it is Uniswap. The only thing that is like Uniswap on Bitcoin with Ghosty is that it has a swap interface. That's the only thing. So the fact that the narrative around it and the people who buy the token and don't even use the protocol are like, this is Uniswap, they already did this or whatever. It's like, okay, you're like confusing yourself and confusing everyone else about what the product that actually is, right? Like you have to be able to communicate the product to really give people a reason to hold or buy this token, right? Like if the product of Ghosty is we funnel your funds through Monero and it obfuscates where the flow of where the money is going, and then you can get 24 hours later you can get whatever token you're swapping for, but it comes to a different address, whatever. It's like sort of Tornado Cashy. It's sort of like an on-chain exchange type deal. Like that's like a good product. And if you can easily communicate why you should hold this token, then there's no confusion, right? What makes the MotoSwap community so powerful is that everybody knows that the idea is we're building a DEX. If our DEX does anywhere close to the volume of Uniswap's DEX on Ethereum, and you hold the token, you stake it, there's a lot of money and fees that you could possibly make. Like that's the idea behind holding the Moto token. Like we're not promising any amount of returns for doing something like that. We're not promising anything like that. But the fundamental basis of the Moto token is extremely clear and transparent, right? So I just think that like and again, Opnet, for example, we go out and we do all this talking about it because we're trying to explain to people the concept of it. We're trying to explain to people how you can use it. How can you immediately benefit yourself, and how can you capitalize on these narratives on Bitcoin by building technology and applications
it's like
on Bitcoin.
You guys started off in this place very curious for the notion of tokens being traded on Bitcoin BRCs, and that led you down the rabbit hole of like, okay, well, there's some problems here. Let's see what else. Okay, CBRCs. And then from that, you're like, okay, well, that's the token standard is not going to do it. Okay, this Meta protocol, right? Oh, CBRC is token standard or Meta protocol? It's just token standard, correct?
It's a token standard.
Right.
It's literally
right. So token standard, and then you went to the Meta protocol, and they're like, okay, this is what it is. So you've been through the journey. I kind of like feel it from my standpoint too, right? You're evolving too as a person in the space, right? And that's fine.
Yes.
Look, about Benny and on all these things before we end this topic here, and I'll just go to the live chat quickly, just answer some questions. I have it written down here because I lose my train of thought sometimes with so much going on. Yeah, so with the bitmaps, I don't know, man. One could argue he piggybacked off of that big, large-ass community to get popularity as well. Then they turned into his hardcore marketers on Twitter. Anything you say bad, even if it's true, they might come and shoot it down. And this is not an offense to them, right? But back in the day, like when I was saying this about Traxing, I don't know if there's any use case here after speaking with the team too. Even today, there's still no real use case. It's kind of like these guys will still come after you, and I'll call them like, you ever played Resident Evil on Sony when you were a kid? And like these zombies just come after you, blow their head off, and they turn out another one, blow his head off, and because like you're wrecking them with facts. They just keep coming in fucking numbers. And another thing about Block Runner, and I think those guys mean well, but I feel as though a lot of the reputation is because of Block Runner, and I think they mean well, and I mean this. Never ever spoke to them in my life. But they've mentioned me, I've mentioned them in their videos just for the saying that they cover things. But I feel a lot of the credibility Benny's getting is filtering and funneling through them too. And they have this perception of being pristine reputation, and they do have a good rep. So I think part of that is from there. Back in the day too, I was calling Benny. People call him Benny the Dev, Benny the Dev, Benny the Dev. I was like, fucking Benny the Devil, right? Because that was my beef to him when my pushback, because we were having some beef. And I was like, out of just being a joke, I said the moment Tap goes live, I want to drop the first meme coin on Tap and call it Pedo and use Benny's fucking Discord profile pic as the fucking logo. So shit got real bad, bro, between us and them, And again, if they want to be sensitive to that, what I said, sure, like it got nasty, and I don't mean that today in that regard. But what I would say is, where's your fucking track use case today? Where is it? I want to know. What I was saying.
That's hilarious.
What I was saying to them today. What I was saying about Runes and other people like yourself and Chaining and these guys, and I was saying about Dog, and ain't going to do much. Like, look at it today. It may hurt you at the beginning because I'm saying these things, but I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm just trying to be correct in what's going to happen in the market months from now. And that's what's happening. Yeah. Guys.
I think practically, last thing is it started very like community based. Like especially in the early days when it was Bitmap and the Tap protocol just kind of launched, but there was no details about the token, and it just it turned into more of like they raised a bunch of money. Things got somewhat corporate on the back end, and I think like the community members that were at one point it really was like a thriving community for the track and especially bitmap people. It's kind of gone away, and those people are like looking to blame external reasons for that in some kind of way. But like that again, it is like kind of, when comparing, tap itself is like a meta protocol. You can compare, it's a meta protocol is also a token standard that can do kind of like BRC20 where it's the same thing, but you can compare tap to like Opnet. And again, it's like you need to
How about
have
this?
the tap.
Why is Opnet better than tap?
It's simply because of this, exact reason, where you need to have the tap asset. You need to buy some token that, I'm not going to say Benny exactly, but the Track Foundation and all of their investors hold a lot of that token, right? You need to basically buy some of that from them in order to do anything with it on Bitcoin, which even BRC20 and Runes aren't like that. That's why they're kind of able to be self-sufficient, be community-based. And so Opnet is built with the same kind of theory where the token for Opnet is just Bitcoin, normal, unwrapped, layer 1, non-custodied Bitcoin. It's the exact same way that ordinals work. And so that kind of vibe where there's this community where we're on calls all day. Most of the time that we're on calls with projects trying to help them get to build with Opnet, or we're talking to institutional investors and not asking them for money. Like we have this scenario happen quite a bit where people really like what we're saying. They like the Opnet pitch, and they're waiting for like the other shoe to fall. They're like, when do you ask me for money though? And it just doesn't happen because there is no need.
Yeah, we get these VC. We like to talk to VCs, and we want them to be interested in the space. And again, I really want. I don't believe in demonizing venture capital, because venture capital has a really important role to play in bootstrapping projects. But I think that in the Bitcoin world specifically, because of the limitations of Bitcoin layer 1, a lot of venture capital money has been thrown at these layer 2 solutions that end up being these kind of like down only charts, because VCs own so much of the supply and there needs to be so much funding going on in order to get the thing going. But there's still no users because it's a side chain or whatever, right? You're routing through ICP or whatever you're doing. You have to get these workaround solutions to try and bring this stuff directly to Bitcoin. The approach that we've taken with Opnet is saying, we didn't do an Opnet fundraise. There's not an Opnet VC round. There is no Opnet token. And the reason why is because it has to be Bitcoin layer 1. And the only way to do that is the only token you're using is Bitcoin. And the smart contracts are on Bitcoin, and the smart contract interactions are on Bitcoin. And again, this is inspiration we took from Casey, actually, this is an open source meta protocol. This is something that anyone can inevitably, once it comes live to mainnet, contribute to, create PRs for. Like, there will be a large developer community. There's already, I think, 160 plus developers in our dev chat that are all actively building. And a lot of these people are just actively contributing, trying to help, the project while it's still in the development stage. And again, like, this is the other thing about Opnet, is that you can try it right now on testnet. There are projects building, 30 plus projects that are building. And you can try it right now. You can try it on Bitcoin testnet. You could try it on Bitcoin reg test. You could also try it on Fractal testnet. So there are multiple places you can not only deploy applications, you can interact with Opnet. It's not something that's like, here's an idea. It's fucking real, baby. And you can use it today. And there's a lot of projects that are building high value applications right now using it. That there are sometimes projects that are halfway through the development stage before we even talk to them. And then what do we tell them? We have some resources, like all of these VCs that were interested in Opnet or trying to buy Opnet token or whatever, because there isn't one. We've said, hey, keep an eye out. We'll keep an open line of communication. We'll add you to the Rolodex. And when great projects start to come through and start to build, that's really where venture capital has a real big place to seed early great applications that are built directly on Bitcoin layer 1.
Like, there's multiple projects who are building with Opnet that have already filled their first rounds, actually. So, like Chad said, that's kind of where we're going to talk to VCs, of course, but we're going to direct them to people who are building cool shit on, with Opnet. So instead of just taking it ourselves. So that's how I would compare it to, like, specifically Tap or other things like that.
One guy in the chat says, I need 1% of every Opnet project.
Hey,
somebody
stay early. If you're early, you can get it. That's like the beauty of this, is that okay, if you miss BRC20 or you hit with BRC20, pretty much everyone got wrecked with runes, but if you were early to any of these things, like take your biases out and think about the bullish narrative that everyone's bullish on. And like, it's not just people in Bitcoin who are excited about this, by the way. There's a lot of people on the sidelines in Ethereum and Solana and all over the crypto world that are looking at Opnet or building using Opnet right now that are going to come and eat your lunch. If you've been active in the Bitcoin space for a year and a half and you're going to sit around and be like, meh, I don't like that these guys said this on Twitter or whatever.
Yeah.
You're going to fade a lot of the opportunities that are going to come. Guess who's going to win? People who've been not active in this space, who've been degenning on Solana and Ethereum, those guys are going to come to Bitcoin and win. So I want the people who've been in this space to win too.
I think people from Solana, they heard about these tokens on Bitcoin that did great, which was BRCs, and then the next big thing was runes, and then they got a little bit of wrecked too. So I think also going back to the runes topic, it kind of did more harm than good than people actually, understand here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
We've had to do a lot of cleanup because we've got a wide network. Like, again, we're active traders, so we've got a wide network and we know a lot of people. And we've had to do a lot of cleanup for runes, and like a lot of people got wrecked on runes. They're like, all right, fuck Bitcoin. I don't care about that shit anymore.
Exactly.
And a lot of people in the Bitcoin space completely underrate the damage that runes cause to this stuff. And again, maybe Casey wanted that to happen. He's a total anarchist type. Maybe that was just a accidental byproduct, but a lot of people got wrecked on runes.
That was a pure power trip. Like, I don't give a fuck. I could do it, so I'm going to do it. You know what I mean?
At the end of the day, though, these guys know what's coming. They're waiting for the user experience to feel right. They're waiting for the developer experience to feel right. And as soon as it does, and Opnet is that thing, you can try it right now. Opnet is that thing. As soon as they see that,
what's it? Opnet dot something? Was it .io or something? Or
Opnet.org. Opnet.org.
Well, check it out, guys. Opnet.org. I will also say this. It will be, and this is going to be the sad reality for many people, right? They missed it on BRCs. Now they want the next big thing, which was runes. They got it wrecked. Now they got a bad taste in their mouth, and they don't want to fuck with Fractal. Maybe they don't want to fuck with you guys. They don't want to fuck with whatever's coming out next, and that is going to be a tragedy for sure. Because talk about being on the wrong side of history in consecutive ways, bro. It just doesn't get much worse than that when it comes to opportunities here in Bitcoin. What do we got in the chat, guys? We got another question, I think, here. Yeah, I told you about that. Okay, True D. It's so complicated. I still don't know what Opcat does. Okay, that's Opcat. It's operational code that can add more functionality to Bitcoin-compatible networks or Bitcoin Layer 1, but it doesn't appear that Opcat will be turned on Bitcoin Layer 1 anytime soon. So compatible networks like Bitcoin, like a Fractal Bitcoin of the world, they're going to turn it on, and Dogecoin.
I can give you a super TLDR ELI5 as well, right? Opcat means different things for different Bitcoin-related networks, right? So for Bitcoin Layer 1, given some of the limitations that exist on Layer 1, a couple of things. Assuming Opcat happens on Bitcoin Layer 1, which there's the Bitcoin improvement proposal process it has to go through, so that's a really long and political process, but let's just say it happens, which we all want it to. The biggest benefit for Opcat on Bitcoin Layer 1 is for trustless bridging for Layer 2. So we've been talking about all these Bitcoin Layer 2s and these side chains and stuff, but there can't be technically a real Bitcoin Layer 2 in the same way Optimism is a Layer 2 for Ethereum, right? Like, that doesn't exist on Bitcoin yet. And Opcat allows for, fundamentally, that to exist on Bitcoin Layer 1. You can make these Bitcoin Layer 2s that are much more true to Bitcoin with this near trustless bridging experience. So that's what Cat VM is. That's where the Taproot Wizards, that's what they're really pushing
Chad, quick question. Is there any trustless bridges on any other network?
Well,
like Starkware or yeah, you never hear of it, right? You got a bridge in peg.
It's smart contract based, right? So there's like, it's about as trustless as it can get, but you're still working on either a multi-sig of some sort or
so let's give Alex Lab as an example, right? To send your BRC20s over there, you have to put it through, I guess, their one wall, then they give you one for one. That's not trustless. So, I mean, these are the type of bridges we're used to, is what I'm saying, right? So, the reason why I asked that too is because Yahweh mentions trustless bridging, and I was like, that's a thing. I didn't know that exists. I just don't know how that looks like.
It basically looks like you hold your Bitcoin assets still on Bitcoin that's like in this covenant. So there's like conditions for this Bitcoin that exists on Layer 1. And so instead of giving your Bitcoin to a centralized entity, you put it in a covenant on Bitcoin layer 1,
Mhm.
and then you're issued this asset on this layer 2. So it's not 100% trustless, but it's near trustless,
Yeah.
where you don't have to fully give custody of your
Comparing
asset
it to the
somebody.
current what's available now, it's more trustless than
Exactly.
that. Huh.
Exactly. It's
Gotcha.
way more trustless than that. So that's where a lot of people are really excited for. This helps with scaling. This helps with functionality. There's a lot of really cool things that Opcat on layer 1 allows for. On Fractal, we have a totally different story, right? Fractal is a situation where Opcat could possibly allow for much more programmability in terms of smart contract stuff, especially because specifically really of Yahweh's involvement. He's kind of at the cutting edge of experimentation with what you can do with Opcat. So a lot of what he does is he not only Opcat itself doesn't inherently allow for a lot of this stuff, but what he's able to do is like simulate a lot of the other opcodes using this. This is deep into the weeds. Like I pretty much barely understand this myself, but he's able to like simulate the other opcodes that allow for way more stuff to happen through Opcat. So Opcat to him is kind of like,
I can explain that a little bit. So basically, like on BSV and on the original version of Bitcoin, you had division, multiplication, Opcat, a bunch of other opcodes that basically let you do everything that a Turing complete machine would need to do any algorithm. That's basically what Turing complete means. And so what Opcat on its own can do, when they enable, again, the Bitcoin one and the Fractal version are a little bit different because Fractal has a much, they can turn on more opcodes even post-launch much easier than Bitcoin will. So I'm just going to let's assume it's the Bitcoin one where you don't have division, you don't have multiplication. All you can do right now is add or subtract values from like a string essentially. And so with Opcat, what you can do is you can loop those events to happen multiple times. So you can emulate multiplication or emulate division by subtraction and addition in ways that make it feel like technically you're doing multiplication, but it's doing it in a way that requires 2 times 8. Normally you can do that in one time. You're going to do 2 plus 8 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 8 times. So it's just not very efficient. But again, Fractal is like a totally different situation compared to Bitcoin because they're like a totally other blockchain, and they're kind of, I would be very surprised if Fractal didn't turn on other opcodes eventually.
So Danny, do you agree with Chad in his assessment of not calling, and I'm okay with saying that you guys seem to know about this, understand this better than me in terms of sidechain, layer 2, right? Like I understand layer 2s that on with like what we saw in the past aren't real layer 2s, but I mean Fractal is very meticulous in the wording they choose to describe what they are. They never once mentioned layer 2. They never once mentioned sidechain. I think they're consistent by calling it an extension of Bitcoin. Now, those weren't exactly the words from Chad, but do you agree this is not a sidechain as well, and this is like somewhat of an extension? I think you said blockchain to a certain degree.
Yeah. So Fractal is like kind of hilarious, man. Like basically 12 to 13 years ago on the Bitcoin talk forums, Satoshi himself proposed this idea of what's called merge mining. Essentially, the idea of merge mining is that you can make another blockchain that uses Bitcoin's hashing algorithm to mine that chain, right? It's a completely separate blockchain, but the miners can mine Bitcoin and also this other chain. And so basically, like Namecoin, I think was 11 years ago, was one of the first merge mine chains that really had any attention. And it was just kind of it wasn't really used. There was no use case for merge mining at that time, so it was kind of like a marketing gimmick.
But this was back when Bitcoin was like, Bitcoin is going to replace fiat, right? So that was the narratives that were running around.
Yeah, long time ago.
Like Namecoin had little utility. So we're here in an era of Bitcoin in interest in programmability.
We're experiencing a Bitcoin scaling problem right now. Like basically, there's more than 6,000 people. Occasionally, there will be more than 6,000 people who all want to do the same thing on Bitcoin within 10 minutes, right? And that causes congestion, that causes problems, it causes bloat, all of these things. Like the size of the Bitcoin blockchain has gotten considerably larger since ordinals have been around for the 14 years before that. And so Fractal is not an L2. It's not a side chain. It really is like extension is a pretty, this is not like a technical term really. This is more of just like a broader description. But I would say that's an accurate description of what Fractal is to me. I feel like Fractal, both based on the tech behind it and mainly based on who is behind it. It feels to me like a very, very smart and very, very much needed thing to release. Again, like I explained earlier, we basically have been, keeping our ear to the ground for the term merge mine since March or April.
But
so when we heard it,
Rootstock does that too, I believe, and I think there's somebody else, no?
Yeah,
they
so
do, but they're
Rootstock does do that.
it's part of the meta protocol.
Right, where Rootstock is sort of misstepped, and it really wasn't their fault because they were early to this. They were pre-ordinals, right? So they were still trying to like, how do we connect the EVM to Bitcoin? And so they have this merge mine chain, but the thing is that it's like an EVM based chain, which again, like, it's all about the user experience at the end of the day, especially when we're talking about this meta protocol space that we live in. Like the Bitcoin assets that exist here and all the liquidity that exists on Bitcoin layer 1 that isn't just hardcore Bitcoiners who just hold their Bitcoin and don't use it.
Yeah.
All of the liquidity that exists now is a totally new market. And this market cares more about user experience than they do almost anything else. So that's
literally
where
BRC tokens are JSON files. Like, Unisat is single-handedly responsible for giving the UX of these are tokens. You can store them
the way I see it is this: it's the first group of people to risk their capital, right, to create a wallet, to create a marketplace, to create the first BRC20 indexer. And one could argue it's, everybody that's trying to do something could be trying to copy the originals, right, or trying to do, create what they created in a better way. And now they've been quiet the entire time, and all of a sudden they're coming to market, and here it is. You know what I mean? Like, and the thing about Tap, it's almost like, the reason why I say this, and I don't mean to knock them down, but like when I hear Tap, it's almost like they just don't have that it factor, and you've been hearing the same things from them from day one. So even if the product is finished, it's like that hype ceiling is already here and it's overspilling to the point where like it can't really draw so much more interest because you keep hearing the same things every single day. Now with Fractal, like what you said, we heard about it in May. People heard about two months ago. They've been working on this for about a year, but they haven't been hyping it and marketing it. You see what I'm saying? So what I'm trying to say is I feel like we're going back to the original people who first saw these problems, who best understands it. You know what I mean? And that's what I'm looking at to wanna, to try to take a good closer look at this and take them serious. I think this is something we should take we should seriously consider this over anything else we've seen in the space. And
totally agree. I mean, that's why we immediately deployed Opnet on the Fractal testnet. Like, I think that, look, our timeline for Opnet is not exactly lined up with Fractal's mainnet timeline. Like, our timeline for Opnet is probably roughly about a month delayed from when Fractal is going to supposedly go live. So, I think it's going to give a lot of time for Fractal assets to develop, for the market on Fractal to mature. Obviously, Danny and I are going to be messing around and playing there all the time. But like on the investor side, of course, but like for us, I think that where Opnet and Fractal really have a lot of synergy is that, Fractal is this open space for experimentation. So Fractal gives every application that builds on layer 1 using Opnet the ability to, if your application is getting extremely high traffic and the fees are so high that the value of the transactions are no longer reasonable for the users, it gives them a place to go where they can now deploy their applications and still give the users who maybe who are not whales, a place to still play with the exact same application, the same user experience, everything the same except faster and cheaper. And so a lot of stuff is going to happen on Fractal that's completely unrelated to Opnet. A lot of stuff on Fractal and stuff with Opnet on Fractal are going to be living in like two separate worlds, right? Like you have applications that are going to be for BRC20s. You have applications that are going to be for maybe Opcat related assets. And then you're going to have applications on Fractal that are for Opnet related assets like Op20s and OP721s. Like these are the standards for this stuff that come along with Opnet. So Fractal gives this wider sort of playground for all of these assets to coexist. Like a big problem we have on Bitcoin mainnet. Okay, so let's just play Opnet out a little bit. Opnet, there's going to be, there's 30 projects plus building. Let's say 10 to 15 of them are great and they launch and everything's fine, right? Well, if all those applications launch on Bitcoin mainnet, there's not going to be a lot of room for, because Bitcoin blocks are so small, there's not going to be a lot of room for other standards or other things to really exist. So everyone's going to be fighting for the same block space. So, just alone, all the applications that are going to launch with Opnet that give high value to users and application builders, it's going to be a great experience for all those people. It's going to be a lot of money to be made, I think. But I think that long term, there's high competition between these different standards and stuff. And I think it is somewhat a zero-sum game. On Fractal, it's completely different, right? BRC20s and OP20s, and if there's Opcat token standards, like all these, Fractal's a place where all these things can kind of coexist in the same world, and you're not going to be fighting for it to take up block space because there's going to be way more of it to go around. It's going to be faster. So that's where I think like a lot of the conversations that people have been, on Twitter, a poll, are you bullish on Fractal or Opcat or Opnet? Yeah. It's like, well, honestly, all these things interplay with each other and work together very
coexist.
well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I see, yeah.
Exactly. So
look, somebody said in the chat there about yes man this, yes man that. I think you must be new, brother, because there's no yes man over here. I mean, like I just feel a bit refreshing here that there's other people who see similar things as me. I mean, we had a disagreement, which was about, I think, Danny's view on Casey and my view of Casey. But I mean, other than that, it's just, if there's a problem, there's a problem. We could talk about it. But I got to admit, everything that they're saying, I think, is what a lot of people, excluding myself, had in their minds, but too pussy to say it out in the public. And I think it's the truth. And I think that how we need more realism in this space. We really do. We need more voices in this space. It's almost like this space is controlled by a few fucking people, right? Leonidas on his little jerk circle on his fucking ordinal show. Nobody seems to want to question them. Why? Right? That's all. Let's move it on to greener pastures. So this is the last topic here. 3 fucking hours. That's crazy, bro. But this feels like a Twitter space. This is why I avoid Twitter spaces. Like, not that I avoid them, but they go on for too fucking long. But I don't mind doing long, like, conversations like this because I can utilize my damn expensive ass studio. So look, let's talk about other projects in the space that you guys like. And I guess, like, it's like you might say, well, not much because everything's about runes. But we could, I don't know, maybe Fractal, maybe what you guys have going on in your eco, or just in general, right? I
mean, Fractal, we're definitely, super excited for. I feel like we've covered that quite a bit so far, so I'll stay away from a little bit too much about that. But there are some pretty cool projects that are launching with Opnet as well on both Fractal and the mainnet, and even Bell's coin. Like, actually, Bell's, I would put Bell's coin as something. I have 0 Bells myself, but I think that they've done a really, really cool job of adding merge mining to their chain and Taproot and Opcat. So
that's the narrative: merge mining, Opcat moving forward, bro. In the Bitcoin eco, at least.
Right, and Taproot.
I think there's gonna be a lot.
I thought you were about to say Tap protocol. Go on.
No. Taproot. And like another big thing about Fractal, not to just rail on this, is that like it's the first Bitcoin fork that has Taproot enabled. Yeah, and so that's what allows for a lot of this really cool stuff to happen. Like, people underrate how important Taproot has been to everything that's happened on Bitcoin so far. Like, most of what we're able to utilize, how we can bring smart contracts and covenants without needing Opcat, a lot of this stuff has to do with Taproot. So that's why we're able to seamlessly integrate with Fractal. And as soon as Bells puts Taproot on Bells, we'll be able to seamlessly integrate there. And so we'll be able to bring smart contract functionality all over the place. So, but Danny, keep going, because there's a bunch of really sweet projects. I've got a few in mind, but I want Danny to go first.
There's a bunch of them that are really cool that are building like DeFi products. One of them is called Stash on BTC. They're building what's called Liquidity. It was like one of the early stablecoin forks protocols on Ethereum. So they're building a fork of that has a little bit of.
I remember them guys. I remember that actually. Yeah, that rings a bell.
Yeah, that's gonna be a fun one. There's like 2 or 3 different pump.fun style platforms. One of them is called OpFun. One of them is the SatsX guys. They're making one. And then the third one is escaping me right now. And then also an Ohm fork. This is kind of like one of the coolest ones, I think, is we're gonna have the first Ohm fork on Bitcoin Layer 1 itself. And specifically when it comes to like pump fun and ohm forks, and also just like the concept of getting yield and liquidity mining. I feel like we're making Moto swap But people have been hearing about a DEX on Bitcoin for like almost 2 years now. So
Yeah.
the wow factor, even if it, no one ever launched one that worked, the wow factor of hearing about a DEX on Bitcoin, it kind of pales. It's just implied, right? Like we don't have to talk. That's not a selling point to people. But when we talk about specifically something like an Ohm fork, there are a lot of DeFi and ETH whales that are like waking up.
Is that
to the idea of-
Omnichain? Omnichain, you mean? No.
No, Olympus DAO.
Oh.
Like it's just like a DeFi staking thing where it basically is like a reserve currency. So it's like a floating peg stable coin. It went to $5 billion market cap on ETH last time. So like it's one of the DeFi success stories from last cycle. And when people hear that that's going to come on Bitcoin, they know that Opnet is not going to be just like BRC20s and ordinals and runes. No one ever could say there's going to be a BRC20 Ohm fork like that.
Yeah.
That was never a meta.
It literally couldn't happen.
No.
Yeah. Okay. And just a few.
Somebody was just asking
that,
quickly. The stamps eco? You guys have any take on that? I know it's kind of like an older one, but
I don't have a
nothing. No FUD.
Yeah. No. I mean, again, to my knowledge, the thing I've heard the most about it is that they can't be censored by like Ocean Mining's filters.
Yeah,
so I mean
I think
cool
they feel ripped off the most with runes. There's a popular meme out there with the guy in the classroom like this and looking at the other guy's book like Casey. It's Casey like copying, right? They're trying to say they copied the code, right? So I don't know. Not the code, but
think
inspiration.
I think Atomicals also feels the same way about runes. I mean, honestly, to give the Tap Eco credit too, I believe Pipe also was kind of a front run of runes as well. So that idea has been around for a little bit. So okay, just quickly running through some projects we're really bullish on. I mean,
Go ahead.
Obviously, of course, like we also run MotoSwap, and so MotoSwap is Uni V2 mixed with MasterChef. So you have liquidity mining and you have liquidity pools, completely permissionless, decentralized, non-custodial, et cetera, right? So that's awesome. That's going to be really, really cool. It's going to be an easy way for projects to bootstrap liquidity. But, running through, there's a big list of projects. You can go to our website. There's an ecosystem page. It's not even close to updated as it should. That's our fault. We've just been so busy. But there's going to be a bunch of stuff. So there's liquid staking for Bitcoin that is in development. There's a few really cool tools. There's this thing called SatBot, which is like a Telegram sniper for tokens. So that's something everyone should check out. There's a few lending protocols that are in the works that haven't announced yet, but there's a few like Aave style lending protocols that are building right now.
This is your chance. You could talk about this too, Chad. I don't know if it's you guys. Who's making a mining pool for Fractal? I don't know if that's you guys.
Yeah, so we were mining on Fractal testnet. We were the first ones that, like before they released the guide. We ran
What's the name? Is that an actual project you got or a service you're offering, or is just what is it?
It's not. We were going to do it, and then
gotcha.
we saw that it was going to be difficult. So
that's fine. Yeah, no, somebody mentioned. I don't know if you guys did research on them. FISIC or like RSIC, but FISIC.
We've seen that.
Yeah, I don't know.
I
don't know if they're legit or not, but somebody's asking. Yeah.
I would be personally somewhat cautious to the users of investing in something like that. Not saying it's a scam or anything like that. I'm pretty sure there actually is a legit team behind it. I haven't done a lot of due diligence, so I can't really speak too much on it. But like, this is the thing about Fractal mining. Unisat and Fractal themselves will have mining pools that users can join that will be, I think, advantaged for the users.
Yeah.
And I also think that they're going to get big mining players in the game because this is merge mined with Bitcoin. Players like F2 Pool and major mining pools will be mining Fractal Bitcoin most likely, which means that it's going to be really difficult to compete for hash rate.
Yeah.
And, the best way to get involved with something like that is either rent hash power yourself or set up your own mining rig and then join one of these pools.
They like 2 hours ago, I believe, during this call, they just announced their mining pool. So Unisat.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
I would err on the side of caution and align yourself with the major players in the game. Again, buying NFTs to bootstrap hash rate. I'm not saying that's not going to work. I'm just saying that I would play if I'm a player in this game. Not speaking from Opnet side, not speaking from MotoSwap, no brand related here from the pure DGen player side. If I'm a player in this market, which I am, I would, if I have hash power, I would point it towards, whether it's Unisat or more official channels, just so that you can make sure that you're advantaged. So yeah, I mean,
Exactly.
Obviously we're super bullish. Like we're big pizza holders. I think Pizza Swap with Fractal is going to be really sick. Obviously, like I'm bullish on Fractal Opnet based applications like Sats Pump Fund. I'm bullish on as well. Again, that's like people see Pump Fund with Bitcoin. They're like, well, there's Op Fund and there's the stuff building Opnet related Pump Fund stuff, and then there's Fractal based Pump Fund stuff. And so those things are not inherently in competition with each other because they're dealing with completely different types of assets. So I'm bullish on anyone building that type of stuff. And then, there's a giant fucking list, but there's infrastructure providers that I think are really, really, really exciting. RPC providers, people providing endpoints so you don't have to run your own index or your own node in order to build applications. There's a few that are building right now. Sat Signal, Gaze Network. Those are a few off the top of my head. There's even more building. Obviously, I'm really bullish on we're just going down a huge list here. Oil Wallet and their entire ecosystem. Sandshrew, Metashrew, and Subfrost are like these products that they have that are trying to basically make interoperability between different meta protocol assets, which I think is going to be a massive, massive idea going forward. Because if you can seamlessly like layer zero these meta protocol assets, well, now you don't have to worry about, I have runes and I think Opnet's going to kill my bags. Well, guess what? You can seamlessly your rune to an Opnet asset and then interact with all these smart contracts and take advantage of all the functionality for these assets without having to give up any sort of like major custody. There's obviously going to be bridges for this stuff. Mubi and Xlink are both building bridges for inter-meta protocol stuff. So there's a lot of really, really, really cool things that are right on the horizon for Bitcoin. So
I think it's a very exciting time. And I feel like the excitement that was sucked away from people with runes should have been entering here. And this is the real, it's real game time right now. This is a real game. It's about to start. And I'm just so excited. Like when I speak with people like yourselves, Yahweh, and others in this field who are actually building towards Fractal Bitcoin or Opnet or what have you. You guys are going there too. They understand it. They get it. And I feel like this is where the foresight comes into place, right? And the average person doesn't have much foresight. But I feel like they would soon feel it once everything is flourishing and it is live. And guys, speaking of live, this is crazy. That's 1.5K people watching this, bro, on YouTube. On Twitter. Wow. That is ridiculous. So all good. Look, this has been an incredible, very alpha driven content here on this edition of Francis Doing Uncensored. Anything else you guys want to tell the folks who are watching us? By the way, we're going to do this again. Great conversations with you guys. Chad, if you want to say something, now is your time.
Yeah. I think that number one, obviously, hit our social channels, opnet.org, stay updated on stuff, Opnet Twitter, Opnet BTC, that's where you want to go. But also, if you want to keep active on deep development stuff, follow our lead dev. He's the guy. Danny and I are kind of like the faces of this thing, but like there is a guy who really architected a lot of this stuff, and his name's Anakin, and he's the lead developer and kind of the mastermind behind this whole operation. And you follow him on Twitter, and he's messing around with Fractal stuff. He's giving tools. He built a Fractal faucet. He built a Fractal mempool. He's just like a serial experimenter. He's an ultimate dev, and he's the guy to follow if you really want to get educated on stuff and stay up to date on developments within Opnet and developments within just kind of all sorts of cool experiments that he's kind of messing around with all the time. So follow him on Twitter too. Obviously, Danny and I are out there. You guys can find us pretty easily. So that's all I have to say about that one. But thanks for the opportunity to talk about this stuff, man.
Oh no, we're gonna do it again. Danny, go ahead.
It was a great time. Yeah. Definitely follow Anakin and check out the opnet.org website. If you're a dev and this is getting you excited, join either the Moto Swap chat or the Opnet chat and just ask us for access to the dev channel, and we can get you right in there. It has over 160 devs that are all building already. So thanks a lot for having us on. This is the longest podcast we've done also. It was a really fun time.
Crazy.
So,
it was. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. We got Chad Master, the Opnet guys, and Danny Plainview here as well. I'm very optimistic to see what they're going to deliver here. As I say, I don't pledge allegiance to one thing. I pledge allegiance to innovation in the Bitcoin ecosystem, an ecosystem that needs it the most. So you know what? There ain't really much left to say other than until the next live stream interview or upload a video, your ass is on your own, bro. Later.